Good evening, Cryptid fans. Man, we got a great show for you tonight. A guy that we just recently met through last week's guest, and Jeff was able to get a hold of him, and he gladly acknowledged and was happy to come on with us tonight. We're going to talk some Texas Bigfoot and whatever else he's got to say. As usual, we just we don't ask a whole lot of questions, but we'll have some chat. More than welcome to. I'm working without a net here tonight. Of course, but about an hour and a half ago, I lost my internet again. And so I got the computer hooked through my telephone. So far it's working good. But we'll see. If I drop out, guys, you just roll on with the show and I'll be back in. So Jeff, how you doing, buddy? Milkman.
I'm good. I was out here a little while ago mowing the pasture. I had to park it at a different angle so the cows couldn't get to the electrical on the other side of the tractor because thank God they'd shoot on some wiring that wasn't working on anything because the tractor's probably 30 years older than I am. So there's not a whole lot of stuff that's easy to screw up on that.
Wait a minute. I'm over 30 years old.
I was going to say the same thing.
No, not quite 30. Not quite.
Well, hold on. That tractor might be as old as you, probably. I think it was built in 77 or somewhere around there.
Well, we're still older than that, Jeff.
Chad and I are 10 years over that.
I don't know. I have to go pull up the book and see.
Jeff doesn't math well.
It's lucky I do anything well, as hot as it is.
Yeah, it got warm today here. Yeah, absolutely.
Got very
warm.
Probably not as warm as it gets in Texas, but
yeah, I'm sure it gets warm in Texas.
Yeah.
It's very, very warm here.
Texas is the one place you can go to where you can experience all of the weather fluctuations in one day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we got Chad Black with us again. And I'm going to touch base on this real quick. I don't want people to get the wrong idea that anything happened here with us and David Blaylock. David has a lot of internet issues. And this was a decision by David, not by any of us. David is stepping away for now because his internet is driving him crazy. He feels like it's a problem, which I told him it's not for us. But he's more comfortable not being on here until they can do something with the internet or upgrade soon. Maybe they hope. By all means, his spot is always here, and we'll miss David. But David will be in the chats with us, and we hope that they can get that straightened out, and he'll be back. But not to be outdone, we got Chad Black, man. We got the podcast himself, man. So
hey, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, you're here. You're number
take David's spot. So
yeah. Big shoes to fill. David's he's a good guy. We're going to miss him, but like I say, he'll be in chat with us. He's going to be doing what he can when he can, and hopefully he'll get that straightened out and come back soon with us. So.
Yep.
Otherwise, we got the man from Texas, Mr. Luke Gross, and it's good to meet you. And again, we were just chatting drywall and stuff backstage before we got started. We're both old drywallers, but well, he's a finisher, but it's got some really cool stuff from Bigfoot, I understand. So we're gonna, as always, we're just gonna step aside and ask Luke to go ahead and introduce himself, who he is, how he got started in the subject, and the floor is yours, man. Whatever you want to talk about.
I can tell you how I got started. It was a surprise. But first, let me preface it with this: when I was younger, I backpacked, hiked, hunted, fished all over the country. Arizona, Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Colorado. I pretty much thought I'd seen every bit of wildlife that was out there. But in 1984, I found out totally different that there's more out there than just your average turkey vultures and buzzards flying in the sky. In 1984, my brother had bought some property outside of Greenville, Texas, close to a little town called Lono, Texas. And they'd been out there, I guess, a couple of months, and there'd been things going on. My mom had moved a mobile home in, and it was probably 30 yards from a barbed wire fence. It was fairly open, just a tree line that went next to the house. and she had to put a vapor light outside so she could see at nighttime. But things started happening around her house. Bump on the side of the home, rocks hitting the side of the house. I'd find rocks laying behind her house where they hit the house, and they might be this big around. They put big dents in the house. But I said, well, it must be some kids or something out here messing around throwing rocks. Well, it was November. My wife and I lived in Dallas or Garland, Texas, and we would drive out to my mom or brother's place and spend the weekend. Well, my wife and my daughter went to bed, and I guess it was about 9:15, and maybe closer to 10. And it was a nice November night, and we had the front door open, and there was a glass storm door on the mobile home. Well, my mom, you could call her a cat lady. She had 15 cats, at least 15 cats.
Wow.
And she would feed them on her front porch. She had a little bench, and she'd get the pans set up and line them up on here, and she fed them dry fish flavored cat food. And that night, I was sitting. She had a recliner and it faced the TV, and I was sitting next to her on the floor. Well, all of a sudden she leans over and she taps me on the shoulder and she says, "Did you see that?" And I kind of leaned forward, and all of a sudden this huge hairy thing steps towards the door and stops right in front of the door. Couldn't see the face. It was above the door. And it just kind of stopped like this, did this number, turned to the left, and stepped off the front porch. I scooted back towards the wall, and I got rug burns on my butt because I was wearing short pants. Just went all the way back. And I sat there, and the first thing I said, this isn't supposed to be here. This is not supposed to be here. And so it took me a good 5 minutes before I'd even open the door up a little bit and look outside. It really wrecked my world, so to speak, because I thought for sure that it wasn't supposed to be there. So I told my brothers, of course, two of my brothers, they said, nah, we don't believe you've seen that. Well, okay. So I kept it quiet for probably 20 years and wouldn't tell anybody. I was afraid I was going to be ridiculed, just like everybody else is that has encounters. Not everybody, but most people are afraid to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I was too, in a way.
Well, especially back then.
Yeah, back then you didn't talk about it. You didn't talk about UFOs.
Right.
If you've seen anything like that, you just totally didn't talk about it. Well,
how old were you when that happened?
I believe I was 23, maybe 24 when that happened.
You said that the dog was doing something over there. I was trying to figure out what that was.
Yeah, 23. And that was a long time ago. But I just, and I guess it was about 20 years later, got on the internet and was like, which was a totally cool thing, I thought at the time. And I said, I wonder if anybody else has seen anything like this here in Texas. Well, excuse me, I looked, and there's a forum. It was called the IVBC. I believe it's IVBC. Anyway, Henry Franzoni had this page, and everybody posted. They said, "Hey, I've seen this, and this." And I just posted my report there and what I've seen. And man, there was a lot of people who wanted to talk to me about it. And then the GCBRO, Bobby Hamilton, he came out to the house and interviewed me, and he said, "Do you want to go out with me in the field?" I said, "Yeah." So I started research there at the GCBRO. After that, I was just totally amazed. I went out and bought books upon books upon books, not on Bigfoot. I bought books upon books on zoology, entomology, biology. I wanted to know everything there was. I was always a great student in earth science. Oh, I loved it. And So I said, well, I want to learn everything I can about what's going on out there. I want to know about food sources, what could they be eating, what's available here in the state. And I dove right in, and through research, I found they really do like wild plums, and one of their many food sources that they eat. Had an incident take place in Oklahoma. A man had reported seeing a Bigfoot at a shooting range, believe it or not, by his car. And so we were investigating that, and we went to the area where he had one throwing pecans at him. So we walked into the area, and he was scared. He was really scared. Every time the leaves on a pecan tree went like this, he jumped. It scared him to death. And anyway, we made it back to this meadow, and we was going to set up equipment and recorders, so on and so forth. And all of a sudden, the sun goes down. Well, I'm really tired, so I crawl in the tent. But before that, we went to one corner of this meadow. The meadow is probably 150 yards long and maybe 100 yards wide, surrounded by cedar trees and plum thicket. Well, we started, excuse me, me and another guy, there was plums all over this plum thicket. And so we said, oh, those look delicious. So we walked right into the middle of this plum thicket, and we ate just about every ripe plum out of this thicket. Oh my goodness!
I don't blame you. I would have done that too.
Yeah, they were delicious. Anyway, so we go back to camp, and I'm getting tired, so I go to sleep, lay down, and all of a sudden, I wake up, and you hear this sound. It was just, the sound kept building. It was like, oh, 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 and it got so loud, so loud. It's like a bull that was mad, but there's no cattle in this area, and it just built up and built up and built up. And I thought that was a pretty cool vocalization.
Yeah.
But that area, I was always let me see. I have a itchy trigger finger when it comes to a spotlight. I really do. If I have a spotlight in my hand, and I'll fess up to it, I've blown it twice with a spotlight. We've set up right where the shooting range was, where this guy had his encounter at. Well, we took a piece of raw chicken and we hung up in a cedar tree to use as bait. And it's kind of a low-lying area, and a little raised edge, about 8 feet tall. It was grassy covered, and we're all sitting there. The guy who had an encounter, he was holding onto the door of his pickup truck. He said, "This is as far as I'm going." So I said, "Okay." So we get in the bed of the truck, which is facing a creek, and one of the researchers is sitting on the toolbox in the truck. I'm sitting on the tailgate. I'm the spotlight guy. All of a sudden, to our left, up on this little high ridge, we hear this swishing sound. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. And I say, "Oh, what in the world is this?" And I get my spotlight, and I hold the spotlight up, and something's fixing to come through. And by the time I turn my spotlight on, this squatch moved so fast that it had already passed the spot where I was going to turn my spotlight on, made it around the cedar tree, and made a grab for this piece of chicken hanging in the tree in front of everybody. And the guy sitting on the bed of the truck and saying, "It's over here, not over there, it's over here." Okay. So I swung over there. It didn't get the chicken, but it hit it. The chicken was swinging on a piece of string, and it made its way down the creek, down the embankment of the creek into the bottom. And we all ran over there, and you could hear rocks turning over in the creek where it's walking down the creek. So to me, it did that on purpose. There was no, it was intentional. It said, "No, I smell the chicken. I don't care if they're there. I'm going for the chicken." But that was a pretty interesting incident. Then another incident took place But that area, I don't know if you guys ever had a tree shook or at you. I'm talking a tree probably about this big around where it just went.
Yeah, like a whip.
No, but we know plenty of people that have.
Yep. And that happened in that meadow one time on a second trip. And then it happened over by where I had my first sighting. We went on this one road and drove back there. It was cold. It was November, late November, cold. And I'd had a shot of steroids put in my knee. I had a bad knee and it was cold and my knee was aching. And so we decided to drive down this dirt road towards an area called Turkey Creek. So we drive there and we pull up and we stop and get out of the truck. And no sooner than we get out of the truck, you hear this call. Ooh, come to the northwest of us. And it's like, how do they know that? How do they know? Just instantly announce, I'm here. So we're standing in front of the truck and all of a sudden we start hearing bipedal footsteps coming through the leaves in the forest coming towards us. And it's just, you can hear them crunch, 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 crunch. And I got the spotlight. Oh, it's the itchy trigger again. And it gets just where I think it's about to step out onto the road by us. And I hit that spotlight. I turned it on. Nothing, just spider webs. That's what it looked like. The trees looked like spider webs. And it stopped. And it didn't move. And we said, oh man, we missed this one. So we walk around and turn and go sit on the tailgate of the truck. And directly behind us, probably 20, not even 20 yards, there was a sapling about that big around. That sapling started going. I said, oh man, are you seeing this? Are you really seeing this? He said, yep. Needless to say, we didn't stay much longer after that. I said, I'm cold. I can't walk very well. And if something happens, I said, you're going to get out of here because you're going to run a whole lot faster than me. So that was just, I've had so many different incidents take place. You know, when you're out in the field and you go and you locate these areas, you get on a map and you say, okay, because I love to hunt and I use topo maps to, well, they're always where there's food, where there's water. If there's deer, wild boar, even young or cattle, young calves on ranches and stuff, though they frequent those areas. So if you got food and water, that's where they're going to be, especially along the creeks. Like Smoky Crabtree always said, they always follow the creeks. But he's right. He's 100% right about that. But
well, all animals follow creeks.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yep, they sure do. Deer and we do have some bear here. Matter of fact, we've got photographs of a lot of tree damage to bears, and I've seen tracks, but not many bears here. So when people say,
corn damage here once in a while to bears.
Pardon me?
Corn damage.
Corn damage, yeah.
We'll go through our corn and occasionally we'll get bears come through and they'll just wreck the corn and chew up stuff, and you'll see tree damage once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
definitely have that here. And a lot of people, there's so few bears here. If they see damage to a tree, and it's like, what did this? Was it a Sasquatch? But just you have to look into it and say, okay, are there claw marks? Oh yeah, there are. Are they sharp claws? Yeah, they are. But yeah, I've had a lot of different things. But after that incident, the first encounter with my mom's, I wanted to see what was going on and see how smart they were. And she used to have a skillet, an old aluminum skillet she fed her cats out of. Well, I said, I'm going to try something. So I took the skillet, I filled it up with dry fish flavored cat food, probably 6 inches high, in this 12-inch skillet. And she had an old willow tree behind her house, and it was kind of dying. So I took this skillet and I placed it up, probably about 8 feet up in the fork of this tree, and then I took flour and I spread all the way around, probably 8 feet around. I want to say, okay, I'm going to get some footprints. Well, next time, I think it was the next day we were spending the weekend. We went out there the next day. The skillet was taken out of the tree and laid on the ground, still full, and not a footprint anywhere. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, and I'm sitting there. Something had a very, very long reach, and after what I'd seen in 2000 on the same property, I can see why, because it was almost 9 feet tall. The one I seen in 2000, but that was a passive encounter. That was a passive sighting, the coolest sighting I've ever had. Nothing that would scare you, you know. And I had moved a mobile home out on the property, and because I wanted to help my brother keep the place up, and they were getting older, and so I'd walk over to my mom's at night and go visit with her and stuff. So one night, this was about 10 o'clock. I said, "Well, Mom, I'm going to the house," and I left. Well, she had that vapor lamp, outdoor light, to the south of her house, which cast a shadow on the north of her house. Well, I got on the porch and was talking to her. I said, "Well, I'm going to go." And my brother's little dog, Feisty, was there with me. And so we just walked off the porch and walked towards the end of the house. And all of a sudden I heard this sound. Swish, swish, swish. And I knew automatically what it was. So I creeped real slow towards this cedar tree on the back side of my mom's house. And the light, it shined a long ways down the fence row. And I'm sitting there watching. And the little short dog is already seeing something. Her head's moving under the tree. She can see under the tree. So I step a little further outside of the tree and I look. And there's this Bigfoot walking down the fence row, and it stops and it kind of turns sideways, and it looks like it's about to cross the road. It looks left and it looks right, and then it just goes away. It heads towards the southeast. And I marked a spot of its height on a tree that was there, and it was the branch was 9 feet, and it was probably, like I said, probably 6 inches below that, so about 8.5. And it was the same color as the one I seen in 1984, a khaki color, kind of a tan color. But there were so many things that happened there. After I moved my home in, we'd be laying in bed at night, and of course the mobile home had ridges on the side and on the metal. Well, everybody had gone to bed, and all of a sudden you would hear something going down the side of the house, like it's taking a stick, except I think it was fingers. And I'd jump out of bed. The kids would come up. They would get up out of bed, you know, scared to death. And I'd grab my shotgun and I'd open the back door. And I said, "You son of a buck, quit doing this crap." Well, I haven't got the underpinning on the house yet. This thing would crawl up under the house and pound on the floor.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah. And it scared everybody so bad. And my other brother had moved out there before I did. About the same time my brother Carl had moved out there. And he moved. His wife said, "This place is cursed. We're moving." And they laughed because they would get up in the night and their mobile home would be moving.
Wow.
Yeah. And somebody else, they moved, and somebody else moved another mobile home down there further back towards the fence. And one day before they had moved in, you go out there and the metal on the side of this mobile home is ripped off. Because this was like
Whoa.
10 feet from the fence road. And they used this fence road to travel back and forth. There was a 50-acre lake across the street from my mom's, and there's one row of trees along the fence that they would use to move from the lake to the other side of the road. And they would stage on the west side of the road. They would stage up before and check to see if there was cars coming or anything like that before they crossed the road. But if any, and I know one of the kids that lived down the road or behind me, actually, he come up and said one day, he said, Mr. Gross, there's some really big things living out in these woods. I said, yeah, there's some big things. But if you look at this area, you would say there is no way that there were Bigfoot in this area. No way. It looked like just you had your creeks that flew in, that would flow in to this 50-acre lake, and maybe an eighth of a mile wide section of woods along these creeks. Well, they would use that to move across this property to get to another area. They'd never be seen, especially if they moved at night. I remember one night, my brother and I was going to my mom's, and we both heard that swishing sound. And I said, I know what it is, Carl. You do too. So we took off, and he had planted some pine trees along the front of his property. And we got behind these pine trees, and we started working our way closer to closer. They was going to come across the road. Well, when they come up, we got closer. They come across the road, and you could hear flat feet hitting on asphalt. Plop, 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 plop. And then they come across the road, and you hear the fence twang, and they were gone. You couldn't see them. They're so fast.
I've heard stuff similar to that up here on my road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're flat-footed for sure. And you'd hear that, but I had a lot of cool things happen out there. One night, my mom, I come to stay at my mom's. She had surgery on her ankle. Well, I was going to lay down on the couch and just sleep on the couch, and if she needed anything, I'd be close by. Well, all of a sudden, something hit the side of the house so hard that it knocked a picture off the wall. Boom! And it just up and down. I still remember what the picture looked like. And then another time, the house got hit. It knocked. Mobile homes aren't built that good.
Now, I grew up in one.
Yeah. Well, it hit that side of the house so hard, it knocked one of the kitchen cabinets loose from the wall. It was on the right side of the kitchen.
Yeah.
Boom. And it knocked it probably half an inch off the wall. And yeah, they would get mad, but they calmed down after a while when they figured that, well, we weren't gonna hurt them or anything. My youngest son and I, we would go out at night and lean up against a tree behind the house, and we just listened. They would we had a really huge wood pile behind our house on the fence row. Well, the Bigfoot would get down behind this pile of cut wood, and you could hear them. They're breaking branches off trees. And so we'd go down there the next day, and you'd hear, this is a bodart tree, Osage orange, one of the hardest woods, and these branches would be just twisted. This wood is so hard, and it's amazing how hard it is, but how strong they are. But we'd set, and then you'd hear them sound off. You hear one call, and you'd say, "Oh, well, that's a really big coyote," and all of a sudden, a deeper call, and then all of a sudden, the coyotes would start, and then the cows would start moving. You'd hear the cows, and I think that the Bigfoot were chasing the cows personally, or trying to get calves from them, because I found numerous dead calves that had been opened up and the entrails removed, and the organ meat would be gone. But I found several of those. They'd wind up being thrown in the creek. Why, I don't know.
Wow.
Maybe trying to hide evidence. I don't know. They're smart enough to do that, from what I found out. But I've had so much happen on that property. And then in 1999, I believe it was 99, formed the TBRC, Texas Bigfoot Research Center. I founded that. Myself and Craig Woolheater did. And got a lot of people together. We had a lot of researchers, a lot of people wanting to research. And what I enjoyed was showing people how to track and stuff like that. What plants were this and so on and so forth. And I'd take 25 people out at a time and say, well, this is how you can tell it's not a track, or, look for tracks, look for hair on fence lines, or so on, or where to find hair, or how to track an animal. The first thing I told most people, if they didn't know anything about it, I said, go buy a tracking book, an animal track book, a plant book, and learn this, learn how to track animals. And that's the first thing I did. I tell them, you do that and you're gonna learn a lot. And I even would give them tests because I was trying to inform people. I wanted people really interested at the time, and I wanted to show them what I knew, and that way they could go out. And we wanted to try and find as much information as we could about these Bigfoot that lived here in Texas. But I made a 8-foot plywood cutout, painted it, same color, everything. And I would take it out and I would hide it put it on the side of a trail. Well, everybody would be out in the field doing something, and I would head back to the truck. And I'd get on the walkies and say, hey, I need so-and-so to come in, come to the truck. So they'd walk back to the truck and they'd stop, and I'd say, we're being watched. Can you see where we're being watched from? And nobody ever could find it. Only one person did. It was a little lady about 65 years old and 5 foot tall. Yeah, it's standing right over there next to the line. I said, well, you just passed with an A. So had a lot of fun. And then I got away from the TBRC and started doing independent research. And that's when everything started getting really, really interesting. You could go out and everything that I've seen, that's everything I say is my own opinion, not like somebody else has the same opinion. But there was an area, I believe it was in 2004. This is one of the deepest, roughest, swampiest areas. I mean, only your true outdoorsman would enter into this area. And you had to get to it by boat. My son had told me about a guy that was into Bigfoot research in the same town we lived in. And so, okay, I said, see if we can get the guy's information. So he did. And so he wanted to take me out to this area. So he went out and introduced me to the area, and there was Sasquatch stuff signed everywhere. Even the first time I was there, we got followed. And it was cool. I knew what it was. They'll make this loud huff sound. It's just like, except way deeper and way louder. And it huffed, and all of a sudden these wood ducks just exploded. They were gone. And I said, well, we're getting followed for sure. But we went into this area and we hiked, I guess, the first time. We hiked probably 6 miles in, I guess. And snakes. Oh my goodness, there were so many snakes. A lot of water moccasins and copperhead and some rattlesnakes. You had to really be careful. But anyway, we went into this area. I've got some videos out that tells the story, but I'll just cut to the chase. We were stormtrooped out of the area one night. He said it was the second time I was there. we went into this area, and so we pulled the truck down, back the boat into the boat ramp, and we would start to load stuff up. All of a sudden, you hear a call come from across the river, and then another call would come from downriver. And it's like, they know we're here.
Now, which river is this?
This was up on the Sulphur River, and but we were up there, and we went in. I guess it was the second time we was down there, and we went into the area, and he said, I had my 12-year-old son with me. He said, you want to stay in here tonight? And we had a base camp set up. And I said, man, I don't have half my equipment's not working. I don't have what I need. But I said, well, yeah, I'll stay. He hadn't never really had an encounter. So I said, he needs a good introduction. So we did. And I had deer scent, honey, and I think that was about all. I had no blackberry juice. I mixed a concoction up with some honey and blackberry juice, and then always set the deer scent on it, a 50-yard radius, about every, 20 feet. I'd hang a tab of deer scent, just saturate the air. Then I get the honey in a metal coffee can, and get a sterno and set it on a rack and start burning that honey. And the honey starts smoking, and it just moves real slow into the woods, and then it'll spread out. Well, we got in there and got everything set up and built two fires, or two places for fires, stacks of wood ready to go in case something happened. And so we're sitting there, we're facing the east, and all of a sudden there's a call. Then there was another call. I said, now, okay. And all of a sudden it's just pitch black, dark, no light, cold camp, just that little light from that sterno can burning. That's it. And I can hear everybody's nylon chairs zipping, turning real quick. Zip, zip, camp chairs. And so we're, all of a sudden I hear a branch break just to my right, probably not even 20 yards away. And it was like something stepped on a branch, but it was a big branch. And I'm sitting there and you hear everybody's chair still zip, zip, zip. And all of a sudden the guy that I was with, he says, I'm going to turn the spotlight on. I said, don't you dare turn that spotlight on. Do not turn it on. And he did.
You guys didn't have thermals then, did you?
No, there were no thermals, no night vision. We didn't have night vision. So I said, don't turn it on. So he didn't. And so it moved kind of to the west and northwest of us. You could hear it moving. And so we're sitting there, all quiet, everything's cool. And all of a sudden from the northwest, this roar breaks loose. I mean, it just rattled you. It just, and it wasn't very far away. It sounded like a T-Rex and then King Kong mixed together.
How far do you think?
35, 40 yards maybe.
Well, I had that. Oh yeah, it started 100 and it moved in on me.
Oh my gosh!
That's why I don't work on deer stands in the dark back there anymore.
I hear you. Well, it roared, and the lady, the guy's wife that was there, she said, "What was that? What was that?" I said, "Well, that was a Bigfoot, and it was a big one." And I'm analyzing sounds all the time. I'm analyzing. Okay, how aggressive was this sound? I'm saying, okay, no, we got to go. So we leave. The video camera stands there and grab our packs and spotlights and everything. And we start moving out of the area. Well, it looks like daggum UFOs, lights going everywhere around you, moving down the trail. So all of a sudden, I step in a hole with my right ankle, and I sprain my right ankle. I hit the ground, bam. And I wasn't a little guy. I'm really not a little guy now, but back then I wasn't little either. But anyway, I hit hard, and the guy that was on point, he had his shotgun, and he turned just real slow, and he looked, and he said, "Oh," so he comes back to help me up. Well, I'm looking at my son ahead of me. Everybody's going single file. I'm looking at my son, and he's pointing. Are you hearing this, Dad? This is what he's saying. Are you hearing this, Dad? Are you hearing this? And I'm saying, yeah, I'm hearing this. It's coming through. It's tearing crap up. It's pissed off. I mean, really pissed. So we get up and we start making our way. And I know the guy that was on point. He said, I felt like the dadgum trees was just swallowing me whole. I couldn't get down this trail far enough to get to the boat. But
I
anyway,
always hear that when it comes to Texas.
yep. We made it back to the boat, and we get in the boat, and so we got spotlight going and everything. And so the lady is saying, well, let's start the big motor up. Let's start the big motor up. I said, no. We need to use the trolling motor to get out of here so we can hear
How
what's
big of
going
a
on.
boat were you on?
It was, no, it's bigger than 14. It was a big, wide aluminum boat, flat bottom boat. I don't know how long it was.
Did you fit everybody on it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can put it. Well, I'm on it. The story continues. Trust me, the story continues. And this, I'll give you a little bit of an explanation how big this boat was. Anyway, we managed to make it out of the area. Nothing happened. We just made it back to base camp. And I got on the phone, called my wife, said, hey, there's an effing Tyrannosaurus Rex down here in these woods. And that's exactly what her said. And it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, at least. And she goes, oh, that's nice. Hung the phone up. I woke her up. She just didn't know the excitement that I had. She would, though. She would know the excitement later on in that same area. But that took place. And I told the guy, I said, if I'm going to research down here, if I'm going to be in there, I'm not going to do it on the ground. I said, we're going up. We've got to get up in the trees. And he said, okay. So needless to say, here comes the part about the boat again. We loaded this boat up with enough lumber, 2 trips, and a mule dolly for deer, hauling deer out of the woods. We took 2 loads of this lumber. I'm talking 2x6s, and built a stand 20 feet up in these trees that would hold 6 people.
Damn.
And this is with table and porta potty in the little porta can in the corner, a little curtain you could pull across. If you want to sit there, we didn't have to go anywhere. We could stay up there.
That sounds like a deer stand and a half.
Well, it was, and it was the bee's knees for sure. I mean, we could hang our microphones outside, hang them down, have microphones, and record stuff. But eventually, I mean, you could hear them come in. There was a creek about 14 feet away that ran by this stand, and you could hear them come across the creek. Whoosh! And it's like, holy crap. Well, they would come and they would throw sticks at us up there because this stand had a metal roof on it, and it had like a tight tarp around the bottom, then burlap sides. And they would sit there and throw sticks at us up there, and they'd be down under us, moving around and all kinds of stuff. And it's like, okay, so we did this. I don't know. We researched that way for maybe a year there, and well, actually, it was longer than that. But one night, I had this really, really super bright idea that I wanted to get on the ground, and I wanted to research on the ground. So we At a little table, we set it up down below the stand. And my wife she was there with us. She had a really bad headache. And so she stayed up in the stand. And we told her, said, now, if you hear that ladder starting to move a lot, kick that ladder over because it could be a Sasquatch coming up that ladder. So we're sitting there, okay. And she's okay. Well, she's up there. And we get all our equipment set up. And like I said, there's a creek just, 14 feet away. And we're sitting there. And we've got our recorders going. And I'm looking at the other side of this creek. And this is pitch black. You can't see your hand in front of your face. So I'm looking. And I see this set of eyes like this. They were this far apart and like this big around. They were milky white. And they were moving like this. Eyes never moved. Kept watching us. And there was there was 4 of us on the ground. And it would move back. And then it would move across again. And I'm telling the guy over here, I'm saying, hey, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Are you seeing it? Yeah, I see it. So all of a sudden, at the same time, the identical time, everybody stood up and said, we need to get up in the stand right now. And it wasn't because of the eyes across the way. It was some other reason. They said, just come over. So we got to go. And so we run over to this ladder. Well, remember we told the wife to kick the ladder over if she heard it. So, but she's smart. So the ladder, we're going up the ladder to get in the stand, and she gets a spotlight and she shines it out of the burlap down toward where we were at. And she starts screaming, get up here. There was one right behind you. And oh my gosh, it's just like a bunch of chickens running around. And but we all managed to get up in the stand. Well, the reason we felt that way is because one snuck up and was within 8 feet of us behind us. And we never heard it move one time. Yeah. That was her first sighting. Was that night. And that, needless to say, we stayed in the stand from then on. Our research was conducted in the stand at night, and we researched during the day. And that was crazy. I'm glad she didn't kick the ladder over. That's for sure.
Yeah, been in trouble. Real quick, I want to ask you, all the trips to that stand, more often than not, did you have activity?
Well, if we tried to keep them in the area, because there was a 55-gallon drum feeder. You can feed deer and hogs here. So we would keep this feeder full all the time to keep the deer and pigs going to it. But it was more often than not. We took watermelons into the area, cantaloupes down there. We would take these mineral blocks for cattle.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd take these big mineral blocks and we'd tie cordage around them and we'd hang them in a tree. And then we would put a big pile of sweet feed on top of these mineral blocks.
Oh, yeah.
And then we would go back to our research stand, stay the night up there, go out, and we'd check the next day. That mineral block was gone. And you know how big the mineral blocks are. They're huge.
Oh yeah. We have them.
Yeah, and that area was so amazing. They would take those. They didn't do much with the watermelons. And I'm not one to say feed the Bigfoot. Don't feed the Bigfoot. There's other ways to keep them in your area. But anyway, we would be there and be researching. And I remember one time we come through, we wanted to tuck the boat a little further off the main river. So we went up this little slough and pulled onto the bank. Well, there was nothing but bamboo. So we said, we're going to cut this bamboo and cut a trail and make it to the main trail. So we trailblazed right through this bamboo, cut it down, made it our way back to the big research stand. Well, we go back the same way, and all of a sudden there is a branch. Well, actually, it's a sapling about this big around, laid across the area where we cut through, and basically saying, "Don't do this." And there was a big pile of bamboo that had been stacked up. A lot of the bamboo we had cut had been stacked up at the end of where we entered into the other main trail. It had been stacked up. And it's like, okay, we understand. It's pretty simple to understand that. And it's come to find out why later they were eating the bamboo. What they'll do is they'll take this bamboo and they'll put it in their mouth, they'll chew it, get all the juice out of it, then they spit it back out. The roughage, they'll spit all the roughage back out. They just get the nutrients. And I bet it's because they can't digest the bamboo, the roughage of the bamboo. So, and we've got to find so many tracks and so many footprints down there. It's like, hey guys, look, another footprint. Yeah, that's a nice one. And we keep walking. There was 2 families that lived there, but they never met with one another. One was on one side of this river, excuse me, and the other was on our side of the river. We'd find the tracks, but never together.
Wow.
And a nest, I found 3 nests where they made this honeysuckle vine. They just wove it together. It was about 8 feet around. All of them were. One was actually slightly covered. And then footprints, and then that. But that area produced a lot of good evidence and several casts from that area. But the dirt wasn't really that good to make cast because there's a lot of water. But that was one of the best places I researched, and just a lot of years spent there. But then I'm gonna get a drink here, guys.
Jeff, real quick, right across the road from where I had eye shine and vocalizations here, there's a bamboo thicket in there.
There's several places with bamboo thickets around here.
And you brought that up.
People imported it and they had no clue what that stuff did, and then
we used to have it. Yep.
I got a friend of mine right behind his house is a big bamboo patch.
Yeah.
And
it's interesting.
Yeah, that would be a good place to look. Maybe even find a trail going in. I know here the wild hogs, they'll go in and they'll bed down in the bamboo. There's so many wild hogs here. It's ridiculous. But yeah, that would be one of the first places I looked, would be the bamboo areas.
Well, for anybody that doesn't know anything about trails or anything, it doesn't have to be a very large animal. It spends enough time going in and out through that area. Mm-hmm. Even a groundhog could make a path in and out of a field.
Oh yeah. Yeah, rabbits, rabbit trails, and armadillos. I have a lot of tales about armadillos.
Yeah, fortunately, we don't have any armadillos.
Right. Yeah, it's but I spent a lot of time walking the trails in there, and it got to a point in this one area, I started seeing branches alongside the trail, but these branches would be placed in like a 3-sided square or a triangle, or a star, an asterisk, A shapes. You would find them going into our area, just laying there on the side. I'm saying, okay, this isn't right. And then I went to another area 4 hours away with another research friend, and I found the same things. And I'm going, okay, I really piqued my curiosity. And then everybody started talking about them. Well, I decided that I wanted to do a study on these symbols that's being found. And that 4-year-long study I told you about earlier, that's what it was about. And these symbols, I call them syllabics, or a lot of people call them glyphs. They make them and they try. Here, let me tell you what happened to me. I don't know if you've ever heard that if you've ever seen a Bigfoot, you kind of get tagged, so to speak. Like if you see one, there's a very good chance you're going to see another one.
I
like
think it's what happened to me.
It's like they know you, you know. It's like, okay, I know that guy over there. I've seen him before. I know his smell, so on and so forth. And I always called it sin association. But anyway, I said, okay, we're gonna try this. This was in Golden, Texas. Lived in Golden, Texas. It's right outside of town. And one night I'm cooking, November again. I'm cooking chicken outside. It's a nice evening. And barbecuing chicken and all that, and sitting there in a chair at night with my headlamp. You know, okay, cool, looks good. All of a sudden, a rock lands right next to me. Boom. So I said, okay, I know what it was. No questions asked. So I get up, walk, turn around. I had a high vapor light or sodium lamp outside too. So I walk towards the fence. I see these branches on the ground. So I grab these branches and I break them off into sections, I don't know, 12 inches. No, yeah, about 12 inches long. And I grab and I hold up in the air and I look towards the direction I thought the rock had came from. And I held the sticks. And I had an old dog kennel by the fence, a real big one. I took the sticks and I laid them on the kennel and walked back and started cooking my chicken. Well, I went out there the next day, and these sticks were arranged in patterns.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Patterns.
That's
And
crazy.
It was crazy. And I said, that's communication. Because it had to have seen me put the sticks there. And
They were definitely watching.
yeah, they were watching, definitely. They watched so much. And we released a 5-part video series on the study.
Can you still find that?
Oh, yeah. I'll send you guys a link to it. It's 5 parts. And for 4 years, I had a Bigfoot coming up to my house. It would come in the back way, follow the little fence, and then I had a recorder set up and in an old plastic folder copy can. Then I'd shove my micro cassette recorder up in, or not micro cassette, but my digital recorder up inside with 2 pieces of foam insulation, pipe insulation, and then hung it upside down, and I put the branches right on the ground there and then over on the kennel and towards the back of the property. It was about an acre of property.
Now, is this the same one where they were up under the house, or is this a different area?
No, this is a different area. I'd moved out of that mobile home several years later. Excuse me. But anyway, I said, okay. So I started seeing other people finding the same thing. So I think it was a total of 5 or 6 people. We were finding things, the same symbols across North America, across the country. Everybody was seeing the same thing. And we discovered they have over 119 different symbols that they use to communicate with. 119. And
Did you? I don't want to. I'm sorry to interrupt, but do you think you ever figured out any of those symbols?
One. We figured out a lot more than that. But and the answer was from, I said, okay, they're using this type symbol. I'm going to try an Ogum symbol. It's a Viking language with lines.
Yes.
And so I placed one there, and it was friend. It said friend. And then my friend up in Ohio put the same one out. She got a response, and the response was Bamoa, Bamoa. And I said, what does Bamoa mean? And I looked it up, and it's a tribe of Indians that had moved from South America, followed up through Mexico, and ended up in northern Mexico and southern Arizona. It's the Hopi Indians.
Okay.
And, you know, they have a really huge, all their tales and stuff. They talk about Bigfoot all the time.
Well, that's what I was wondering, if it was Indian related speak, or symbols.
Yeah.
You said
That's
Viking.
what I often wondered.
Well, it's not that. I had written to everybody in the study, and I said, as a matter of fact, I made a video about it, about possibly finding the origins of the species with these symbols. And come to find out that I believe it's 85 of these symbols come from ancient languages that have not been deciphered. They're working on them now. I'm so happy. They're using AI to decipher these languages or scripts. And
Who would have ever thought using AI for that?
Yeah, and then but the origins are from Europe. A lot of them come from Serbia.
Interesting.
So, very,
Oh, yeah.
very, very interesting. And we've been wanting to talk about it. I will tell you why we released the 5 videos that we did. It was because we spent 4 years and only got one word out of all the studies. One word, and some of these symbols are so complicated on how they maneuver each branch of the symbol. It's mind-boggling. But anyway, out of 4 years, we got just learned one word, and then there was others out there that were saying, well, this means this, and this means this, and this means this, and this means this. And I'm saying, well, how do they know? How do they know that's their name? How? Did they tell them? I'm not into mind speak or any of that. So I'm saying, no, we need to release this and let people know what we found. And so we released it, and it goes into detail on how they place the symbols like on a box, a 3-sided box. They'll start with one frame or one branch, then they'll move to the right and they'll place the next one, and then they'll place the other one on top of the main branch. So you have 2 on top, 1 on the bottom. It's pretty complicated. There's one that's so complicated it took me 3 weeks to figure out how they did it. I got a video of it, but it's 2 X's placed side by side, 1 X here, 1 X over here. And they maneuver these branches that during each movement, it creates other symbols. And you'll have 3 branches on this side, and then 1 over here. If you look at them side by side, you have 2 different symbols. One branch might be turned this way. And it got to the point, and another reason we were afraid to release this is because they become very complacent with these, using the symbols. The lady in Oklahoma that was in the study, she had one area that she would go to, and she would place one symbol out, and she would go check it, photograph it to see if any of the sticks had been moved around. Well, she went out there one day, and she walked up on one moving the branches.
Oh, wow.
It hurt her, and it jumped and dove over this huge pile of brush and went on the other side. It was there moving these branches. And
We got to see it moving them.
Yeah.
Eyewitness, man. That's awesome.
Holy.
That's awesome.
And she would go. I mean, she would go back out. And
How
she
good of a look did she get when she saw it moving the?
do what?
How good of a look did she get at it when she saw it moving the branches?
She got the back. She's seen the back. She's got the color. She had a camera, and when it went over the edge, over the pile of brush, she took photos, and you can see the color and everything through the photos.
So, do you have any? Again, I don't have any experiences in this, but are there any brown pants moments in this? I mean, you guys are hearing things, seeing things.
Well, I've been charged by big giant boars, had bears come up on me,
Okay.
and yeah, there's a lot of people that do. I always try to keep my cool, but no, she was pretty calm, cool, and collected.
Awesome.
She was calm, cool, and collected. And another person that was in the study was Tina Harder. She was one of the ones that had the most activity, and she's in Ohio. And she would go to this trail, and it was the trail that the Bigfoot had created. And there was a main trail here that people would use running this way, and her trail kind of went the other direction. The Bigfoot trail did. So she would take the branches of the symbol, Philbig, and place them on the ground. Well, one day her and her husband was out there, and she went to go move the branches, and all of a sudden, whoop, there's a call. So she stands back up, and she backs up toward her husband, which is standing behind her, and she says, "Did you hear that?" "Yeah, I heard that." And so she walks back up. She goes to move again. She gets another whoop sound, and she moves it real quick and backs up. And her husband says he's seen something moving off away from there, something dark. But she found so many footprints there, and she was actually pretty much the main person in the study. I had a lot of different activity with the symbol at my place, and if you didn't interact with them, here's the thing about it: it's kind of like feeding. If you feed them, they're going to want more. It's the same thing with this. They want more interaction with you. They would come up, and if I didn't go out and move the branches of this symbol around, this one would come up and slap the side of my house. On the side of my house, the paint was oxidized on it, and he would slap the house, and you could see hair imprints in this oxidation of the paint. I got photographs of it. And I planted a garden there, and on the other side of the garden, you can see where they would come up, or one would come up and would just lay down. And it was so defined that I took measurements, and the shoulders on the one that was out there was 3 feet wide. One that was coming up was 3 feet wide. And I mean, you could see where the legs were, the waist, the shoulders, and where its arms were at, held out in front of it like this. And it'd be on the ground just looking at the house. And then my wife would go to let the dogs out into the backyard, had a fenced area, and they would be out there. I've had my recorder running. And one night we was out there, our one was out there, and she opened the door and she goes, "Come on, guys, tell them to come inside." And she got one off guard, and this thing makes this, I mean, weird sound, weird sound. And I got that on recording. I got footsteps on the recorder, a lot of footsteps when it's coming up to mess with the symbols. I know I had a friend, he suggested something to me. He said, "Why don't you get some squeaky toys and put out there? Some doggy squeaky toys, rubber squeaky toys." And I said, "Okay." So he actually sent me the squeaky toys. He had some normal ones, and they had some with these really big bulging eyes like this, and you can see the pupils and everything on them. So I took and I got my marker and I numbered each one of them. Then I set them up. One on top where I had my recorder, it had big eyes. Then the other ones I spread out and placed on the ground. Well, next thing I know, I go out there the next day. The one sitting up above my recorder is down on the ground face first. It had big bulgy eyes. Everyone that had the really big eyes was turned face down. And the normal ones that had just normal eyes, they were still the same.
Oh,
But
wow.
so that tells you even a squeaky toy with big eyes makes them feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And
Like
that
being watched. Yep.
yeah, and it's like, well, they're just squeaky toys, but they didn't know they were just squeaky toys. So,
Right.
but yeah, I had a. Go ahead.
No, that's interesting. That's interesting to know.
Yeah, definitely.
And you know, before I would have never talked about this in my beginning years in research, because everybody would have told me I was crazy. No. Well, I got one symbol that I'll tell everybody, say, use this symbol in your area. Take these branches, get your main branch about half an inch across, one branch 24 inches, and the other one 4 more that are 12 inches in length. And you place the long one down and place the other 4 on top of it, evenly spaced in your area. And if you can, go look at it the next day and tell me what you find. And I've done that to several people, and they've contacted me, and they've went, I can't believe it. They find the same movements. I'd say, well, here's a whole list of the movements of this pattern of symbol. And they just said, it's crazy. I'm working with a guy right now that introduced this symbol, getting the same identical moves that I got for 4 years. And you know how I ruined that area? Because I was dead set on proving what was going on. I have to prove it. So I had an old lawnmower pretty close to the fence, not probably 12 feet from the fence, that faced the area where I put these symbols out. Well, I took a game camera and I put it on the very back of this lawnmower. And I said, okay, I'm going to get pictures. Everything ceased. No more symbols, no footprints, no sound, nothing. Totally quiet. And they had, they never came back. Then I found I had the lawnmower, which has 4 wheels, and on the other side of the fence was an older place where there was a house. There was an old toy tractor or like a dump truck, and it was upright, and it has 4 wheels. Well, after I put the game camera on, I found that little toy. It wasn't little; it was probably 3 feet long. It had been turned upside down where all 4 wheels were showing, and that thing had sat there for years and never moved until I put the game camera on the back of that lawnmower. And the only photograph I ever got was I got eye shine behind the tree. A little brown bat had flew in front of the camera, and it flashed, and it got the eye shine standing behind the trees. And but after that, it was done. There was no more activity. So
Do you think? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Do you think they can see the light from the infrared from the trail cams?
I think so. I absolutely do. I think they can see it. I mean, they can see their eyes are so used to seeing. I mean, I couldn't even explain how their eyes work, but I know they can see me in pitch black. So, and I have to have a thermal to see them, which I've been able to see them in the thermal, which is flipping awesome. It's like I had some poor kids.
Luke, we actually had a deer camera here.
Uh-huh.
Actually, in that same patch of woods where I got screamed at up close. Years later, my buddy and I were up there checking one of the corn piles, and I think he went up and then he called me, if I remember correctly. And he goes, something pulled this camera off the tree. We had we were seeing bears at the time. We thought maybe because there was like some marks on the camera, and you could see where it was unstrapped and it was laying on the ground, and no one stole it. But you could see like a hairy, like the edge of it, almost like a hairy. We thought it was maybe the bear, but now I'm thinking maybe it was like a finger or something.
Mm-hmm.
It grabbed the camera and just pulled the strap loose and dropped it in front of the tree.
Yeah, I wish they'd have just done that and hung around. Just I'll pull the camera off and I'll keep coming back. But I had one lady, she'd contacted me, not too far from me actually, probably about 12 miles from where I'm living now. And she says, I can't mow my lawn. They'll come out and they'll throw rocks at me. There's a creek behind me.
I've heard that one before.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, you don't want the problem? Get game cameras and put up everywhere around your house.
Yeah.
Never a problem again. So, they can
brush back from your house too, so they're not right up on you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've the closest I've ever been was that 12 feet on my mom's front porch. And I remember one time I was in Arkansas, and me and one of my buddies and a couple other people went up into this area. He said, yeah, there's a lot of activity here. He said he was sitting in his tree stand, or as a box stand, and all of a sudden one come up and just pushed that stand and made that stand do this. And he said, oh my gosh. Anyway, we went up to this area and set recorders up, and we all in a Suburban, really cool Suburban too, I might add. But anyway, we'd all got out. It was nighttime, I think there was a half moon, and coming from the woods, just a little ways away, there was a full conversation going on in some language I've never heard before. And we're standing there. Are you hearing this? Can you hear this? Yeah. I mean, it's a conversation. It's like a woman.
I've heard that conversation before.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. And it's just amazing.
Actually, it was this year turkey hunting.
Oh wow.
In Western Maryland.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Man, but when you hear something like that, you go, okay. They make so many different vocalizations, and then you hear this language that I've never heard before. It wasn't gibberish. It was talking, and I've got recordings of them kind of like whispering really, 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 really softly.
Have you ever had anybody report hearing like the grumbling while they're like getting out of their deer stands at night, stuff like that?
Yep.
A friend of mine was right here in the back, and he was actually with me the night I got screamed at working on that deer stand. And he was, he's real particular about his scent-free clothes. He was taking all of his archery stuff off, putting it in his box. And the truck was parked about, 20 yards from the brush. And he starts hearing that as he's like half undressed, putting his stuff away. And he said he stopped fully, half dressed, and shoved his stuff in the back of the truck, threw his bow and everything on the back seat, got in the truck half dressed, and drove up to the barn and finished changing. But he said it was like,
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah. I've heard stories and tales of, all kinds of sounds. Now, in 1983, this is before I had my first sighting. I was hunting in an area. It's called Lake of the Pines. It was some Corps engineer land I was hunting on, and I went down there for
hunting deer or hogs.
Hunting deer, and I was down there. Me and my brothers went down and scouted the area, and I said, "Well, I like this area. There's a lot of sign. A lot of deer sign." So I go down there and I build me a little platform up in this willow tree. I don't know, I was probably 12 feet off the ground, not near high enough, but anyway, we went down there and I made my way to the stand on opening day, archery season. Get my little folding chair, get up there, and I'm sitting. And all of a sudden I hear, I've been there probably 20 minutes or so. I hear a tree come down. I'm sitting there going, okay, shallow roots, cypress trees, they will fall. Okay. I'm sitting there. All of a sudden, another tree comes down. Now I'm saying, now that's curious. Okay, maybe the tree fell over, hit another tree, knocked it over. It's all good. And then the third one came over. Boom. I'm saying, oh crap, something's up. This ain't right. I had no idea what it was until later when during research, I found out that they pushed trees over. And there's no way 3 trees could have came over. And it, in this area, and I sat there and I never seen a deer. Never. And there was so much sign everywhere. But and then this other area that my sons and I we've been going to for, I don't know, probably 5 years now. Well, we get met when we get up in the morning. We get up at probably 3:30, 4 o'clock. Start getting dressed, ready, get your clothes lined out, cross the road. Tree goes over. It was inevitable. Every time we would get up, a tree would go over before we went out to our areas to hunt.
You got some very vocal fellows down there.
Oh yeah, but here's the thing. I went out, and one area, my son and I went out, and he was probably about 200 yards from where I was hunting at. I was hunting, set up a blind, camo netting blind, 2 layers, right by this old growth fallen tree, dead tree. And so I'm sitting there. My son, he's down the ways in the evening. It's evening hunt. And the sun starts going down. I'm sitting there. And all of a sudden I start hearing the weirdest dadgum sounds I've ever heard. It's hard for me to describe them. Just this, not even like that. Weird sound. And all of a sudden these trees start going, saplings getting snapped behind me, in the tree line behind me. And I'm saying, oh, I don't know what this is. Because this area is only 6 miles from the research stand we used to have. 6 miles from there. And so I'm hearing this thing going nuts. So I stand up. I gave myself away. And I had a grunt tube on. Old fashioned wooden one. It's got the little tube end on it. And I stand up and I blow as hard as I can on this grunt tube. And it makes the highest pitched squeal. Just way, and all of a sudden behind me, stopped cold, saved by a grunt tube. But anyway, it stopped. I got on my phone. I started texting my son. I said, you need to get over here right now. I said, because I've got one on top of me. He says, this is what he says. Exactly. Verbatim. He says, oh, Dad, I got deer in front of me right now. I'm saying, oh, yeah, that's verbatim. That's what he told me. And I said, okay, that's fine. But if you want to walk out of here at night by yourself, then you can, because I'm leaving right now. Needless to say, about, I don't know, 5-10 minutes later, he showed up. And I never heard anything else behind me. My son, I was hunting with a 243 rifle, and I'm saying no.
I have a couple of them, and I would not want to be stuck in a situation with that.
Nope. And that was just one of the amazing things, because And I know it had to know who I was. It had to know who I was because they know you. And it's like, oh, come on, man. I just want to hunt. That's all I wanted to do was hunt. And that was the only time I really had a problem in that area without, my son and I, we'd always get to the hunting area late on Friday night. But we would get up and open the door and start getting our stuff, setting up camp and everything. And all of a sudden, way off in the distance, you hear, just almost sound just like that. I said, you hear that, Josh? Dad, that's just the coyote. That's all it is. Oh, come on, man. He did. See, he had a sighting there at my mom's house. It scared him really, really bad, real bad. And he kind of just brushes it off. No, I don't believe that. No. But he was so scared. He come running into the house. His eyes were like, ah. And he said, Daddy, 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 Daddy. I said, where'd you see it? I said, come show me. Oh, no, I'm not going. Mm-mm. He didn't want to go back outside. But yeah, he's had seen that one. And my son, my youngest son, he's been out with me. He's had a lot of vocals he's heard. Then he's had trees pushed over around him. I remember we was going to an area there in Golden. We'd hunt right behind my house on this plot of land out there. We were going to hunt there, and there was trees getting pushed over. As we walked down the trail, there was trees getting pushed over. And I told my son, I said, no, you get down there. I don't know, he was about 17. I said, you get down there and you get in trouble. I said, just give me a call. Well, I didn't know it, but I was over. He had set me up a spot and he showed me where to go. He said, well, you're going to go hunt down here, Dad. I said, okay. Oh, heck, I didn't make it 20 yards close to my area I was going to hunt. They were there waiting on me. They were waiting. They knew I was on the way. And
you managed to bag any deer during any of this?
Well, I didn't know at the time that they were going to be down there. And one of the reasons they were moving into this area is because we had a place that would dress your deer and your wild pigs. Well, they dumped all their carcasses over there. Wow, that's a smorgasbord for a Bigfoot. And so they didn't want us anywhere in there. They go, that's my food, that's our food, and you can't have it. And they're very territorial over food, that's for sure.
Now, have you ever, this is going to be a good question for you, and I've had this happen here. Have you ever found carcasses hanging from stands?
Never from a stand. Now, from trees, yeah, but I always kind of said, well, maybe.
Jerry found a carcass in a tree.
Skeleton, not a carcass, just a skeleton.
Yeah.
I mean, clean to the bone.
Wow. I always said, well, maybe mountain lions, cougars they'll drag their prey up a tree.
Yeah,
right. Well, they break
cougars around to do that.
Well, they break their front legs though.
No.
Both this one's front legs were snapped clean as a pin.
Yeah, then I found deer that had been totally twisted. Yeah. And their carcass was twisted to about right in the middle. It was about that big around. And the lungs would be over here. And then a pile of intestines, the contents from the intestines would be 15 yards away. Then you'd find an eyeball from this deer 20 yards away from the other side of a tree on a trail to where this deer had been hit up against this tree so hard that it popped its eyeball out of its socket and slung it further past the tree.
Yeah.
Wow.
And,
yep.
Yeah, this is
sounds similar to what I dealt with in the woods last year. A buddy of mine lost a deer.
Mm-hmm.
It aired 2 of them in the back field that we leased. It's up against the neighbors, and that's where we found the carcasses, stripped except for some of the hide hanging up in the stands. And it looked like something had grabbed this deer and just like shoved it into the brush. I mean, you could see blood up in the branches. I mean, it was nuts. And when he called me, I had a feeling I knew what was going on. So I was like, I ain't going down there without nothing. So I grabbed some stuff and loaded up real quick and got down there, and we're in this and looking at all these chunks of coagulated blood up in the branches. And then the owl started.
Oh boy.
And we're not guys that back off on tracking deer normally when we know one's, you just don't do that. You do everything you can to try to find it. Well, when that happened, he goes, I think I'm good with the one I got over here.
Yeah.
Well, went back over there, and those deer, there was deer next to us in the woods while we were cleaning this deer. And they just bedded down right by the tree stand. I was watching them with the flashlight, and they just laid down. And they didn't go back out in the field. They just stayed right there with us until we got done and loaded it up on the mule and left.
Wow. Man, that's kind of odd behavior.
I've also seen another one. There's a place across the river from us, a big peninsula that goes out along the river. There's a dump on one side, and there's a big, like, 3,500 acre state forest, and there's another 2,500 acres of state park. I drove out to this place called Turkey Point that Dad told me about when he was a kid. I was out there at night by myself, and I was just driving the roads looking, for places, with houses that had a lot of lights and stuff. And I drove out to the dead end of Turkey Point, and there's a spot there where there's houses like right up against it. A bunch of them have, lights and all that stuff. Well, as I'm coming down the road, this whole herd of deer comes out into the road, comes across, and as I'm turning around, they lay down in the front yard of a house. And I got out of the truck and walked over there. And the other thing about out there at night, you don't see anybody outside their house that time of night. And some of these places are lit up like an airport runway. And these deer were just all sitting there in this yard. And they wouldn't go. They wouldn't leave. What would possess a deer to come out of the woods at night and lay down in the front yard of a house?
Right.
And seek shelter from the animals that are the least likely to put them in a freezer,
Yeah.
Most likely to put them in a freezer. Sorry. Why would they do that? That's another thing right there that, and I've seen the tracks that this one guy we know up there has got in this area. And there's a whole family of them living up there.
Right. Yeah, well, I know if I was in the woods and I lived in the woods and there was something in the woods that wanted to eat me, I'm thinking I would go find a calm place to stay close to humans, because they don't go near Bigfoot. Stay away from humans for the most part. And the deer probably know that. So, okay, I'm going to go up here and hang out here, because the humans wouldn't hurt them if they're in their yard, at least most of the time.
And the police hardly patrol back in there, too.
Huh.
I've talked to state troopers that told me, like, once they get out past that town, like, it's mainly the town cops patrol that area. And most of them don't even leave the town.
Huh.
Like the main section of town.
Man, that's... I know
this
there's
is right up against it's like right up against Pennsylvania too. PA is right. And there's a lot of stories from around that area.
That's like on the river. There's an area I go to here, and not so much now, it's too hot, but I'm a fair weather researcher as of now, because it gets too hot. But there's an area we go to, and there's trails that run through this area. There's bicycle trails. People ride the trails all the time, and then but only to one certain point. Once you cross the Sabine River, there's a bridge you have to cross, and then the trail goes through some pretty tall pines and hardwood areas. Then it gets to the Sabine River, but nobody goes back there. There's a canoe campground back there. You can come in on the river to get to the campground, but it's about 3.5 miles in to hike into this area. But I remember one time I was testing the camera out, and I said, "What?" I normally see deer all the time, pigs, something. I didn't see anything that day, and so I was on the river, doing some videos, and as I'm videoing, have the camera set up on this little pier that runs out over the river. It's not a very wide river. It was, matter of fact, it was low. It was probably 6 feet wide, but there was these little pebbles hitting the water. Bleep, bleep. I'm going, what? Okay, it's got to be birds. One to the bathroom in the water. No, it was pebbles. I'm sitting going, okay, that's weird. So I did my tape, shot my video, and turned around and was hiking out. Well, they just cut a trail. There's an old railroad bed that runs through the area. It's got the rocks on it. And so I said, okay, they cut this trail just to the right of it. So I take the trail on the pine needles, not on the hard rocks. So I'm walking along, and all of a sudden I look out of my peripheral vision. I catch this set of legs that's probably 5 feet long, moving, paralleling me. And I stop, and I yell at the top of my lungs. I said, "Hey!" I yelled as loud as I could. It stopped, it backed up, and got behind the tree about this big around and squatted down. And it did this. Just squatted, had its head down.
When I hear stories like that, it always makes me laugh that they hide behind these little bitty trees.
That's like a moose. That's what a moose does. A moose hides. It thinks it's hiding its whole body, hiding behind a tree.
You can see the body. You can see the antlers sticking out. And it's like,
well, you could see its back. Its back was bowed, and it come out past the tree, and its head was above one branch. It was kind of turned this way, and you can see the eyebrow ridge, part of the ear, part of the chin down here, and you can see the hand. You can see the fingernails on the hand, because trust me, I broke the video camera out at that point, and I started heading in. Well, there was clouds moving across, and it was, when clouds, partly sunny, it kind of makes things blend in a weird way. Anyway, I'm talking on the video. I said, I got this right here. And I'm walking and I'm moving towards it. And I'm getting closer. And all of a sudden I hear a rock. Clack, 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 come through the trees. I said, should have known. There's another one. So there was two there, at least two. So I'm working my way closer. And then all of a sudden, another rock comes. And this time I turned around to look, and there wasn't nothing there, just a rock. And I look ahead. Well, I can't find the one I was looking at. It's gone. So that tactic right there made me turn my head long enough to look behind me so that one could move, the one I was heading towards. That was a cool sighting, though. I wasn't afraid. I was going right towards it. It's like, okay. Now I might have regretted it when I got within 20 feet, but just, I've always found if they travel, there's at least two together at all times. You'll find the tracks. If there's a mama and she has a baby, she'll carry the baby, and sometimes she'll put the baby down. And found tracks, just a female, severely curved, the outside of the foot severely curved, not a straight track, but curved, at least here. And we was tracking her. They were 14 and a half inches long. We was following tracks in this muddy, grassy area. And then all of a sudden, these little 8.5 inch tracks show up right next to her. They come out of nowhere. Oh, we have two sets of tracks now. Well, she went and sat down on this really huge log and started eating on this bamboo. And the little baby walked towards the creek and stood there. And you could tell it had turned several different directions. And then it jumped down into the creek. And you can see its little muddy footprints down in the bottom of the creek. It had a little bit of water in it. But then the nest was right behind this big log where this female was sitting. And I'm thinking, oh, well, this area is obviously frequented quite a bit. But amazing stuff. Then seen two more crossing. Excuse me, two more crossing a highway or a high line right of way at the power lines, and it was over on the Turkey Creek area. And we were looking for tracks. It was July, hot and real dusty. And they had just cleared some trees out. They were clearing another section for these, put new high lines in from the old ones. And all of a sudden, we turn around and go by this huge pile of logs, old dead trees. And on the other side of this fence, probably 150 yards, there was two crossing this high line right away. There was a bigger one and a smaller one. The bigger one kept walking. The little one, I am maybe 5-6 feet tall. It stopped and it just looked at us. Then it turned and followed the other one. I drew didn't get a picture, but I painted it on one of my paint programs. But yeah, that was pretty awesome.
Wow.
But I've had a lot of different run-ins with them. Sound, vocalizations, tree break.
Definitely sounds like it. Wow.
Yeah. Well, there's this one area that is one of the first areas I really dedicated to research. One of my ex-wife's friends said she had just built this house. And she says, I've got some weird sounds around my house, especially when I go out to feed my dogs. I said, okay, we'll come up here and I had a lot of recordings of different, bobcats, mountain lions, owls, and one Bigfoot call. So I played all these sounds. So we went to her house and said, was it this sound? Play it. No. This one? Nope. Get to the Bigfoot sound. That's what I've been hearing. Okay. And I said, well, you got some Bigfoot coming through your area. Well, come to find out, she built her house on an old gas line right away. And they moved that, and it was riddled with plum trees, Mexican plum trees, the bigger ones. And so I took two of us out one night, or no, three of us. One was an anthropology student, and he said, no, I don't buy into this. So we took him out, and so we're sitting there. She had built some stables, and she had an apartment above these stables, just a place to get out of the weather if you had a sick horse or whatever. And anyway, we were sitting on the balcony above these stables on this barn, and all of a sudden you hear a call, come from what would be the east, and then all of a sudden you hear a tree break, or limb break, crack, sound like a shotgun going off, and then another tree break, and then another one behind us. Well, the kid on the end, the anthropology student, he's sitting there going, no way, you got somebody out there making those sounds. You have somebody out there. And I said, nope, I don't have anybody out there. And then I said, they'll be back. They'll be back. And then all of a sudden you hear a call, I guess it was about 4:30 in the morning. Yeah. And those sounds started at about 9:45 when we first heard them. And then you heard a call about 4:30, then another call from the other direction. So this one moved back. You hear a tree break, just one. And then that was it. So we get up and the next day and we go out there and there's plum trees that have been broken over. And I started measuring these trees. Any tree over 25 feet tall, and I think there was 3 of them, had been broken over.
So they just broke the whole plum tree.
Yeah, they just snapped it over so they could reach the fruit off the tree. And the smaller ones, they had broke them over, but in a way that the way they grew, the bark would still be intact. It was like an eye shape. When the tree's broken over, the top piece still kept the sap flowing to it, and the tree would actually continue to grow, but at a lower level. And it could continue to produce fruit at a lower level. Pretty dadgum cool stuff. They're pretty smart. But then at that night, what set it off, that we heard, the Ohio howl? You ever heard that sound?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Ohio. Well, that sound, before it got daybreak, that sound came way far away. And the anthropology student, he's sitting there, I can't believe this is happening. This is real. This is really happening. And I'm saying, yes, this is
And
happening.
I've heard the Ohio howl here.
Mm-hmm.
Have you not heard anything at all there, Jeff?
And there's not much I haven't heard.
I've heard a lot of different sounds.
I scared myself almost to death one night trying to call out there by myself, and I thought I saw something coming, and I took off from the truck.
Time to go. Time to go. Yeah. Yeah, it's, I think, one of the most incredible encounters I've ever had. I was with 11 people. There was at least 11 people with us. When myself and several of my friends, research buddies, we went to do a little conference in Longview, Texas. A guy had said, hey, I want to learn more about Bigfoot. It was a paranormal conference. And so I said, okay, so can you come give a talk? Okay. So I printed up a little book and our pamphlet and passed it out to everybody that was there. And he said, well, I got an area we can go to. You talked about Bigfoot, and I will go show you about ghost hunting. Okay, that's cool. So we're driving out to this area, and my wife's in the truck, and we're driving, and she looks over at me. She says, if we have a Bigfoot encounter out here, I'm going to kill you. Because it was just way out in the middle of nowhere. It was an old slave cemetery is where it was at. And we get out to this area. It's okay. So we all walk in. Well, the ghost hunters, they start breaking out their recorders or whatever they had, doing EVP sessions, so on and so forth. And me and Billy and the Bigfoot folks, we all go to this one corner. And we looked at each other and said, excuse me, this something doesn't feel right here. Something's off. So, okay, we kind of said, okay. So we go over to where the ghost hunters were, and we're standing there talking with them, and all of a sudden to our northwest, there's this howl. And I'm listening, and everybody's listening to it. And I said, have you guys ever heard a howl like that? It's not a wolf, it's not a coyote. No, never. Everybody agreed they'd never heard. I said, well, I want to try something. So I did a barred owl call, which I don't ever do. I can make this sound pretty good. So I made a barred owl call. I got a really sorry barred owl call back. It was terrible. And then I said, okay, let's take it up a notch. So I go to this oak tree. It's kind of close to the center of the cemetery. They had cut some branches off about this big around and probably 2.5 feet tall. So I grabbed one of these branches and I whacked this tree 3 times with 1 second intervals in between each knock. I knock it 3 times. And as soon as that third one finished, all hell broke loose. I mean, it got rough. We got roared at from the northwest. We got roared at from the east and from the south. We were surrounded. And the ghost hunters went like this. We're kind of on the outside. The ghost hunters go right to the center of the cemetery. And I'm going, oh man, this is cool. And I'm going off towards the edge of the woods. My wife's heading this way. My buddy heading the other way. And everybody was kind of just like, oh man, we got activity. I can't believe this is happening. And so my buddy, he goes over and he's standing by this tree, by a creek. All of a sudden, these rocks start coming out of the creek and thrown at him. And my wife's, she wanted to be a little adventurous that night. So she decides, well, I'm just going to walk up to the creek. So she's walking right to the creek where they're at. Right. And I had to tell her, I said, no, I said, you get back here. You're going to get hurt. Get back here. Oh, come on. I said, no, come on. Just come back. And so we're sitting there and there's rocks and stuff and you could hear movement. And one guy, he takes his camera up. He's just flashing pictures, trying to get eye shine. And so we're sitting there and all of a sudden this truck, somebody had to go to the bathroom. I think it was a friend, Bob. He went out and another guy went and started walking up and there's a vapor light way down the road. Well, they seen something cross the road under this vapor light. Boom. So, and they come back and now we seen something down there. And then all of a sudden this guy, his truck, I don't know if it's a guy or girl, this truck comes by. It's an old Chevy. I mean, hauling. And there's a little bridge where that creek is on the road. All of a sudden he locks his brakes up. And it's squealing. Then you're, oh, he hit something.
Oh.
And then he goes, whoa, he takes off. And probably 10 minutes later, county sheriff shows up. Guess who's with him? Texas Parks and Wildlife people are with him. Now, you tell me, why is there a Parks and Wildlife person out there? Needless to say, we had to leave. We had permission to be there, though. But it was like, okay, something got hit up there. But one of the girls that was there was catatonic. I'm serious. She was just out of it, just pretty much passed out because of just it was pretty scary. I wasn't scared, but the people who've never experienced that before, they were terrified. And she won't talk about it to this day. Will not talk about it. Just blocked it out of her mind. Now that was an encounter. And there was at least 11 people there. And then I know Bob, I don't know if you know who Bob Dominguez is
I've heard of him.
He's does the podcast Bigfoot Club. But anyway,
I haven't seen that one yet.
Anyway,
I've heard of Bob, but I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, Bob, he's a super nice guy. Anyway, his nephew was with him. His nephew said, "Oh man, I'm scared. And Bob reminded me not too long ago. He goes, "You remember what you told him?" He said, "You told him that's not fear you're feeling. That's adrenaline." And that's true. If you're scared, you got a lot of adrenaline going on.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And after that, he calmed right down. He calmed down. It was pretty cool. That was probably the most amazing encounter, I would say, with a lot of people. So
someone hit one.
Someone hit one there, yeah. And
that'd be the only reason Fish and Wildlife would be out there with the cop in the middle of the night.
Yep, that's the only reason. But if that truck hadn't came, we probably there's no telling what would have happened. But before it all ended, there was a call way far away, a call, kind of a roar, but it was more of a call, and all the activity just ceased. It just totally quit. I was out there in a t-shirt and a jacket, and again, this was November 11th, 2006. I remember that date, and it was so cold. I was out there and I had just a long sleeve shirt and a t-shirt, 25 degrees. I'm sitting there, okay, well, I know you guys are used to the cold weather. So that 25 degrees here, that's cold.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. For Texas,
25
yeah.
here is cold.
That's cold. I've
Tennessee,
been out.
it's cold.
Yes, absolutely. We was researching that one area on the Sulphur River. I remember we'd be going down the river and it would be so cold, like 17 degrees. We'd have ice on our mustaches and it's like, holy cow. But it's just so much. Bigfoot research has been my life for a lot of years. It's taken me a lot of places. I've met a lot of interesting people and some not so interesting, but it's really been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it for sure.
Let's keep it interesting. Real quick, Barax, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, asked, based on your time in the field and your close encounters, what advice would you give someone for how to respond or carry themselves in that moment when they know a Sasquatch is close by, maybe even watching? Is there a mindset or behavior you found that helps diffuse tension or encourage peaceful interaction?
This is, and I tell people this to this day, is there's a lot of people that will go out and say, okay, we're looking for an encounter. We're looking to have an experience. Well, I've found over the years, you go into a campsite or your area, you sit down, run a cold camp, no fires, and be calm, cool, and collected, and just have a really calm mindset, because they can sense your demeanor.
Mhm.
And if you go in there pissed off and mad and angry, like, oh, I'm here, oh yeah, they can sense that.
I've done that even with a fire, and it still works.
Yep, it sure does. It does. You can't, if you want, yeah, absolutely. But I've always just run a cold camp, or you just go in with a really cool, calm demeanor, and you're more apt to have activity than if you're just up running through the woods and shining your spotlights around. Just sit down. They'll find you. They know you're there.
Yeah.
Now, Luke,
Especially if you get back in the woods away from where everybody else is camping. Like some of us, my buddies and I like to go in, a mile and a half, pack frames, just set up in the woods at a site. And I mean, every time I've done that, I've only done it a handful of times, but every time.
Mm-hmm.
Luke, are you armed when you go into the woods?
Yes, but it's
Okay.
not for Sasquatch, not for Bigfoot.
Well, it's just protection in general. Yeah, I get it.
Absolutely, for protection. Yep. That's I mean, it's it might be a pistol, or most of the time it's a pistol, but it used to be shotgun with slugs. But that's not shotgun with slugs not going to do any good. No good.
Well, I don't think any weapon, pew is going to do anything, because in all of the experiences I've heard people talk about, if there's one, there's two or three or four.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to do anything.
I wouldn't. I never would.
Right.
I wouldn't anyway. But
I'm more worried about the crackheads and the crazy people in the woods than I am about.
Right.
You're right about that. Yep, you're 100% right.
I've encountered them. You think you're, out at nature and nothing else is going on out there, and then you run into some crazy individuals.
So basically, just go in, calm, chill. Like you're just going to sit around a fire and just have fun, and you're going to maybe hear something.
I mean, even when I'm hunting, I always go in with that mindset of I'm just here to enjoy nature.
Oh yeah.
Once in a while, you'll get that feeling where something's
It's humans we don't want to see.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Verax, when you realized the glyph said friend, did anything else happen around that time, like changes in their behavior, vocalizations, or proximity that made you feel like they were actively trying to communicate or build trust? Good
Oh
question.
yeah, definitely. I know the Tina, like I said, she had a lot of activity, and after that, she had made that one Algam symbol. The activity actually increased. They would, and she started hearing the sounds. They would whoop at her, and they would actually follow her, and they would get so close that her husband had taken a photograph, and she was standing by some brush. And after they developed the photograph, there were these red eyes looking right at her, just reflective eyes, and they would actually follow her around when she would hike through her area, because she had different symbols set up throughout her area, and she was actually able to go every day and check her symbols and photograph each one and tell if it had been changed. Now I took it a step further. I started using a chalkboard, and I would draw a symbol on the chalkboard, and I had this big piece of chalk next to the chalkboard. I found marks on the board, and the chalk would be put back where it was at. But then more often than not, I would find the chalkboard on the ground. So they didn't want to mess with that. But when it comes to the branches and the sticks of the symbols, yeah.
Do
Like
you,
I said,
do you have you taken pictures of the symbols and everything?
oh yeah, yeah. Four
Have you
4
ever?
years worth. 4
Do you
years
have them
worth.
on? Do you have them online anywhere where somebody could look at them? Or
Yeah, actually, I'll send a link to you guys.
Yeah.
To those 5 videos, and there's
okay,
photographs of them there. And a matter of fact, the charts are there to look at of all the different symbols that we
awesome.
found and the replies. But yeah, I'll send Jeff the link, and then he can
Thank
share
you.
it with you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome.
and I know my friend Tina, she talked. She said we should share what we've got and what we found, and she'd like to go start speaking at conferences together and let people know, hey, this is what we're finding. And I said, well, yeah, but we haven't got any invites yet. So,
Did you see what Todd put up there?
do what?
I was asking Jeremy if he saw what Todd put up on the.
David and I both put. Is that the one you're talking about? David and I post.
Yeah, David Pilates.
Put it this way: David and I both moved the position to clear each other's field of fire.
Yeah, it was before that.
Luke, how often do you talk about all this?
Do what?
How often do you get to talk about all this on shows or anything?
Well, what shows I do get to talk on, I'll mention it and I'll talk some about it, but not. It goes with my experiences and my encounters. I know it was at a conference this year earlier, and I spent maybe 10 minutes on it, but it's a really in-depth study, and it takes a while to talk about it for sure.
So anybody in chat, it'd be a good idea if you live in Texas or somewhere around Luke, unless he wants to travel, maybe look for a conference that he could go to, and maybe him and they could speak there, because I definitely think people need to hear what he's saying. That's big stuff.
Absolutely. I've got on the 21st of this month, I'll be speaking about it, but it's to a closed audience. There's going to be like 30 people there at somebody's home, but they're inviting a lot of people they would like to hear about it. But I'd like to speak to more people about it. People need to know. A lot of people say, oh, they're big dumb apes. They're not big dumb apes. They're a hominid. They're an ancient human species of human, as far as I'm concerned. And if this language has been taught, or these symbols are understood across North America, and who knows, maybe further into Europe, that's culture.
Sure.
That's culture, and super important. There's a lot of other things that should be talked about. I know, and Kenneth Jaworski, he knows a lot since he's an anthropologist. He was finding a lot of different things that pointed towards culture, other than the symbols, but a lot of different things.
I'm really interested to see what area he was researching around here, because that.
Yeah, he's I don't know if he's researching the area or not. I don't know if his health is good, but I'll try and get him in contact with you.
All right.
Excuse me.
Now, did he ever come down to Texas with you guys?
No, no, he never has. He's been to Tina's area, and I believe he's been into Canada with Winona Alexis Kirk. Actually, it's Winona Kirk. It's John Kirk's wife now. She was part of the study. But yeah, I think it's very important people know what's going on.
Absolutely.
Because it could be the next level in research. It really could. My hopes were of opening up communication with it. I mean, to those of them who would be willing to communicate, it's just the understanding part. And all of these symbols, the script that these symbols come from has not been deciphered. None of them. That's why they're working with the AI right now, trying to decipher these symbols. And the symbols, they come from, most of them are from Europe. The Bosnian pyramid, as a matter of fact, is one place. I'm looking something up here, guys. If you just hang tight, I can tell you. I can tell you the exact name. Oh, there it is. It was called the Sasquatch Syllabic Study. Sorry, I'm being quiet, but
Oh, you're fine. Well, so are the rest of us.
let's see here. I have so many files. It's crazy.
So I was asking about your channel. I'm posting a link to your YouTube channel now.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
What's it called?
Texas Bigfoot LG.
Yeah, that's mine. Yep. But there is it would be under the Sasquatch Syllabic Study. It was the show we did it under was called Bigfoot Under the Radar. Bigfoot Under the Radar was what it was.
Yeah, Lauren said when I was talking to her, she's like, "You're gonna love what Luke's got to say."
Well, I mean, there's so much to it, so much. Well, where is it? Pattern after pattern.
Yeah, I'm really interested in the symbols. The communication they would have, that really intrigues me. Try to learn that, or at least to try to be a detective about that.
Oh yeah, it was just so many. So we would keep adding to the list more and more. And it's like
we've heard about the X's, the tree X's, you know, where they
Mhm.
and the upside down trees with the roots up in the air.
Right.
And that's mainly the ones we hear about. But then I've also, you know, heard of rock things they do. So it would be a nice thing to kind of look into. So I'll definitely check it out here.
Luke, have you found the upside down trees?
Not in this area. Not in this area. And I'm kind of curious as to why. But that's kind of a. Have you guys found any up there in that area?
No.
I just hear stories.
Lots of stories about them.
Yeah.
Definitely see.
Yep.
I know one of the languages, the script is from the Vinca culture. Then there was the Jelisabak script. Then there is a Bosnian script and the Ogam script. I know those three. It's been a while since I've looked at study controls, documentation. Oh, here it is. Okay, I can tell you the names. The Bosnian pyramid script chart. They found a pyramid in Bosnia, and these are some of the symbols that were found there. Then you have the Vinca script chart, and then you have the Glazel script chart and the Jela Sabak script chart. And out of the Bosnian pyramid script chart, they use a total of 23 symbols from the script chart. And from the Vinca script chart, they use 23. And from the Glazel, they use 23. And from the Jelisabak, they use 16. So that's a total of 85 different symbols made from these four ancient scripts.
That's
So
very
what do you think about that? Do you think that Bigfoot or these creatures are something that's been around for a really, really, really long time, that have lived with many
Generations,
cultures?
Yep, I actually do. I think
the American Indians talk about, or Native Americans talk about them. Do we know? Obviously, we know about Yeti over in Europe, Russia,
Mhm.
and the Himalayas and stuff. So, do these creatures? Do you think these creatures live? The Yowie in Australia. Do you think they live all over the world and they speak, or they use symbols? And they can talk to each other, obviously, but the symbols are, for other types of communications.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I think so. And because they're from, I've heard they've been found in Australia around the Yowies.
We've got a friend in Australia
Mhm.
that's had several encounters with yowies.
Yep. But this, to me, when we started this study, I was in hopes it would point to the origins of where they may have came from. Well, to me, you have 85 symbols that are used from European script, and most come from Bosnia and Serbia.
Interesting.
So you think of the Bering Land Bridge. If it was, I don't think it was the Gigantopithecus blackie.
Right.
I don't think Bigfoot is that.
Okay.
I think they're an ancient human, and they were taught these symbols years and years and years and years ago, and they've taught their kids, the babies. They've taught them, because how would they know? How could these symbols being found everywhere across the country
Right.
in North America? How? They're obviously been taught at some point in time, and where they learned it. And to me, that's it. To me, I believe it indicates they definitely originated in Europe, and possibly, in the Bosnia and Serbia area
Centuries ago, too. I mean,
centuries ago.
man.
So
Very interesting.
Luke, there was a question earlier. Somebody from Texas was asking, what part do you live in now?
Hawkins,
Okay.
Hawkins, Texas. Yeah,
East of Dallas.
east of Dallas, a little bit north of Tyler. But yeah, no, that's. But this was the peak of my research, was this study, because I learned much of what they eat in the field. They eat about anything, just honestly,
Yeah, I don't think there's much they won't eat.
Nope.
I know they have a love for peanut butter for some reason.
Oh, definitely love peanut butter.
Who doesn't?
We had a friend on here from a researcher out of Michigan, Brian Barber, and he said that he actually got in trouble for putting out peanut butter near the state park, and he got sick and he hadn't been back for a few weeks, and he was going and buying them big Walmart 4-pounders.
Yeah.
And he was labeling the jars and the lids and putting them out. And when he got in trouble, they were actually going and throwing the empty jars at the neighbors' houses. And then, Fish and Game got involved, and they got a hold of him and were like, well, what's with these dates on these jars? Because we've got lids with different dates and jars with different dates.
Yeah.
They were putting them
lids back on different tubs. Yeah.
They were mismatching lids and putting them back on the jars and throwing them at people's houses.
My son, he has got that drone business, and he was listening to us for a while, and I said I'd say something, because he's like, what if I find something while I'm looking for a deer on my drones, because he's got the thermal.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, you need state parks, you've got what, Hocking Hills up in Ohio, and then the other one is South Fork, I think it is, or whatever, I can't remember the name of it. But he's like, I'm not allowed to fly. There's specific rules that I can't fly over the state parks. So, and I mentioned to him that maybe, it's because they're hiding something. And he's like, Dad, I totally think that's what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Why else would they not let you fly something with thermal capability or even non-thermal capability over one of those places? Now, you could probably get away with that over maybe state ground.
Yeah, I don't know about like Hollins, which is not a state park. It's a wildlife management area. Maybe you can do that there. I don't know. I don't know. Salt Fork.
Tammy Johnson was saying something here, Luke, that she has a friend in Serbia.
Uh-huh.
And something about 15 years ago. Anyway, he wanted me to ask her to look at the symbols, knowing Serbian language.
Yeah, that would be cool. I know they're all on the videos. The symbols that they're using are on the videos, and
I just posted the link, Tammy.
Cool.
Yeah, you want to forward that over to her, and them, him, or whoever it is. Awesome. I'm curious, when you see these beings, are they mainly black in color, Do they vary in color? Or?
They vary in color. The first one I seen was a khaki color, kind of like the color of a box almost, kind of a tannish color.
Yep.
And then I've seen them ones crossing the Highline right away. They were dark brown, almost black. So
Now,
yeah,
were they more Neanderthal looking, or were they like the patty type?
I will be perfectly honest with you. I have never seen the face of one. Never seen the face. The one on the front porch, its head was above the door, so I didn't get to see its face there.
That's wild, though.
Yeah.
Now, over here in the state park, the guy I know that researches in the next county over, he had 2 quadrupedal run past him on a trail. And I think he said one was like beige and the other one was like a strawberry blonde or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, white.
You
I
almost
mean,
think about like a color phased bear.
yeah.
Makes you wonder how many times people have seen them quadrupedal and mistook it for something else.
I'm
I think
okay with any form of transportation with them. I'm okay with till you get the spider crawl. I'm going to have a problem with that. So,
I think
Yeah,
for
but-
me, it's like my wife and I hike all the time, and I've really never paid attention to what I hear. But now we go into the woods and we're listening for everything that we can hear.
you bet.
We'll see. I mean, that's I'm not going in looking for Bigfoot. Obviously, that's not something I need to do. As Luke said, if you go in looking, you're probably not going to find something. But I'm interested, and hopefully,
I've never
one
gone
day-
in looking, and that seems to be how it works for me.
yeah.
Especially when you're in a hammock in the middle of the night and you hear it talking next to your campfire, and no one's
You're a
wait.
human burrito.
Yeah. And of course, it's always when I forget to grab my equipment, and it was just I just got in there. Next thing you know, there's gibberish going on, and I'm thinking, man,
So I don't know. I'm just when
Mr.
Wendell-
Chad for the Slender Man.
Wendell, what is wrong with you?
Are you referring to a rake?
Wendell, you've got. Never mind. I won't.
Wendell's Wendell Man.
I'll talk to you this weekend.
we've got stories of pale crawlers around here, Luke.
Nope, you can have all that you want.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
I
ain't
agree.
kidding. Versus
We've
right by a
got-
power plant. Yeah.
we've got dog man, we've got all sorts
Yeah.
of
Now, UFOs,
that too.
yeah. Ghost,
Yeah,
yeah.
got that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I found, that where there's high Bigfoot activity, there's high UFO activity, and there's high paranormal activity, such as ghosts, all in the same area. And I'm not saying they're connected in any way, but I'm just saying that I've seen a lot of UFOs in Bigfoot areas, and my mom's house was new when she bought it, but trust me, it was very haunted. It was the land that she moved on. But yeah, that I've seen. One of my first outings, I seen set up in the open meadow, and see these red and green lights just zipping to the tops of the trees, and it's just like, okay, y'all see that? Yeah, we've seen that. Okay.
So you've seen orbs. Yeah. That was
Yeah.
the question I was getting ready to ask Catherine.
Well, these were fast. These weren't slow moving. These were zipping fast in between the trees. Zip, 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 zip. I guess it could be an orb, but
I've heard it both. Yeah, I heard slow and fast. Yeah.
I had an encounter in 1978. Not an encounter, but a sighting. Me and my friends, we went up into a mountain, And it was, I don't know, 1 o'clock in the morning. And we said, well, we need to go. We need to get home. So the road come down into a T. And so we stopped on the T. This was in Arizona. And then on the other side was this really deep canyon. Well, we kind of looked down to the canyon. You see a light down there. We say, well, somebody must have went over and that's search and rescue in the canyon in this big ravine. And no sooner than we said that, that light went from the canyon that fast. It stopped right above us. And the brightest, bluest white light just showed down on the car. I remember the year car was a 1976 Duster is what it was, red with a black stripe. There was 6 of us in the car. I was driving.
That's a lot of people in a Plymouth Duster.
Yeah, this is one of the old ones. Yeah, there's 3 in the front, 3 in the back.
Yeah.
And but we was sitting in the car, and I'd leaned up like this and looked, and this light was coming down. I seen where it was coming from, and the girl next to me, she was hitting me on my arm. Let's get out of here. Let's get out of here. And that was Terry, and Claire was on the other side.
Were you driving the Duster?
Huh?
Were you driving?
I was driving. It was Terry's car, and Clara, her sister, was sitting on the other side. She was had a dazed look. She was looking up. Frank in the back, he was on the right side. He's in the fetal position. He's going, they did it. They did it. They really pushed the button. And Diana Delson was sitting in the middle in the back. She was in a dazed look. And Carl Urbina was on the other side in this really dazed, crazy look. But the girl sitting next to me, this is just a second after this light hit the car. She had a full face of running mascara running down her face that quick. Needless to say, I put it in drive and I left. And but that was something I remembered all this time. And I've talked to some of the people that I was with that night, and I said, do you remember the night in the mountain? Yeah. But the next day we walked in, we were still in the school. We were in choir together, and we walked into the choir room, and there was the substitute teacher sitting at the piano. And he looks at us and he goes, did you guys see the lights in the mountains last night? Right at us. And this guy was a substitute, and he looked sickly. He was yellow. He was yellow. And why would somebody ask that? And it's like, come on. That was crazy. But
he was a man in black, probably.
Yeah, something like that. We was up close to that light. Too close for my comfort, but I didn't panic.
Luke, I'm going to send you Tammy's email so she can get those pics of the glyphs.
She's going to send the pictures over to her friend.
Okay.
She answered a while back. Yeah, she's going to we'll watch her videos and get the pictures from them.
Okay,
share them over to her friend. Yeah.
Awesome.
Hey,
yeah, I know.
Get some more answers. That'd be great.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe get some more answers. That would be awesome. I know we had Winona Alexis from Canada. We had Tina Harder, Kenneth Chowalski, myself, and another gentleman. He wishes to be unnamed. He don't want to be, but he's out of Pennsylvania in the study. But we spent a lot of years and a lot of time and learned a lot. As far as I'm concerned, we learned a lot. We didn't learn the language, which it takes years for that. I mean, and I blew it in my area. Well, it wouldn't have mattered because my house got fired. I had to move out. So that's why I'm in Hawkins. I was in Golden at that time.
Yeah, Verax, he actually elaborated on that earlier about the Sasquatch also using glyphs as warnings or messages amongst themselves. I'm sure it is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty cool. But
this has been a very informative evening.
Yeah, it has been. It's excellent stuff, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've learned a few things real quick. What I'll ask the dumb. Well, it ain't dumb. No questions dumb. Any affiliation with UFO? You think with outer? What do you think?
No,
None.
I personally no. I don't think so. I've never found any proof of that. I've never seen one come out of a UFO, but I do know that UFOs are active in the same areas that Bigfoot are active.
Almost like they're trying to catch one.
Yeah, I
Or-
mean,
Could be.
well, they're Bigfoot. They're curious, and humans are curious. If I see a UFO, I'm not going to run. I'm going to say, "Oh, that's cool." I'm going to stand there and watch it. So, who's to say they're not curious too? And say, "Well, I'm going to watch."
I'm with you on that, Luke. I'm curious about that stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've always been curious about that, and the thing about it was that wasn't the only time that happened. Some of the people I had talked to said that I asked them, "Has anything happened to you since then?" Yep. One guy was on an elk hunt. He said the same thing happened. I've had a light, even in Golden, would show up. It was so that bright light I was telling you about.
Yeah.
My wife was asleep, and it came through the window. It used to happen at my mom's house too. This light would be so bright, and it woke my wife up in a room that didn't have any windows. It was so bright it just shined through the whole house, basically.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah, and it happened again. Me and my friends, we used to hang out in the street, and just talking and talking. Oh well, I'm going to live in Colorado, have a cattle ranch, and all this. Well, one night we was all standing outside, and all of a sudden this light just showed up. Boom, and it lit the whole street up. The whole street, the whole block was lit up, and then it just went. It was over that quick. I mean, the light shined probably 5 seconds, and then it was over. It was like somebody was taking a photograph, except with a longer flash, of course. But yeah, that's happened, and I find it interesting because my mom or my grandmother on my dad's side and his sister, they had encounters also, or sightings of UFOs.
Yeah, we've had family members see weird lights and stuff around here. I've seen my grandparents one night coming back from their old cabin down the river late at night, pulled into the farm, and they saw a big bright light disappear behind the barn.
Oh wow!
They drove in there thinking that something had crashed into the farm, and they couldn't find nothing. And I saw what I thought was a star one night, looking up at the sky, and it changed about 1,000 feet in elevation, and
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I actually saw this past hunting trip when we were turkey hunting when I had that gibberish the night before that, right on the ridge behind us, and we were the only ones camped out there. And I had my thermal so I could, see if anything else was there. About 100 yards behind us, I was looking past my buddies, and I see this real bright flash of light.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like somebody had turned on a real high-powered flashlight and then just clicked it off. And I've climbed up that godforsaken ridge up that thing, and there ain't no way anybody could have done that and then turned and got up out of there before I could hit that thermal.
Right.
Tammy just said that evidently she sent that person a message and said she's waiting to translate. So they'll get on those pictures and maybe get some information from it.
That's cool. That would be great.
That was fast. She responded fast. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know what time it is in Serbia, but she answered.
Hey.
Well, guys, my phone is about to die. I don't know when you end the show.
Well, we just kind of go until everybody gets tired of talking or something.
Yeah. There's no time limit. No.
Well, that's cool. That's kind of cool to have because you can talk. Yeah,
Luke, I've learned. I don't want to be Jeff. I don't want to interrupt, but sorry, Jeff.
Done a good job of it, Mike.
Thanks, Luke. Thanks, man. This has been some. I get every time I listen to people, I get to learn more and more, and it makes me more and more interested in all of this. And
Oh yeah.
I want to start being a detective, so I'm going to watch your those 5 shows or the doc, whatever, and I'm going to watch that because I'm so interested in all of this.
Golden question before you run. I'm sorry, I interrupted, didn't I? I'm sorry.
Oh, you're up.
Golden question before you run, and maybe I missed it because I froze up a couple times, and I couldn't hear you guys. Dogman, what's your opinion of that, real quick, before your phone dies?
I've found, I've never seen anything, but I have found a set of tracks in Louisiana. This tracks were probably 10 inches long, about 10 inches, maybe 8 inches long. There were 3 pads, and in front of, and a main pad, but just 3 pads, and in front of each pad was a chisel claw mark. And there was a creek there, and it almost like looked like it had a heel. I'm sitting there, what? I said, what kind of track is that? And I've tracked all kinds of animals before. I had never seen anything like this, especially 3 pads, 3 toe pads. And I watched it. Okay, there's some more. There was 4. So it was on 4 legs or 4 paws. And then they got to this creek, which was probably, I don't know, 1.5 feet deep. This thing got up on 2 legs and walked across this creek because it was just one right after another. And it got on the other side of the creek and it went to 4 again. So it walked across the creek. And that's the only thing I've ever seen that I would attribute to Dogman. And of course, we have Louisiana right very close.
You were in Louisiana.
Yeah. And you had stories of the loup-garou. Yeah, that's I would say Dogman. And I've known people that's seen them. And but I never have. I don't want to. I've heard too many stories. Now, Bigfoot, I'll hang out with Bigfoot. You know, come on, sit down around the campfire, we'll share a acorn or 2 and have a good time, but not with the Dogman.
No. There you go. That's the answer I was looking for.
That's where that shotgun with slugs would be.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Dogman's.
Don't have a Dogman. I don't need one of those crawling up underneath of a trailer. That would.
No, that unhinged me. That did it. It made me more mad. There's another tale. Let me see. Oh, I can get through this tale. I've told it before, but I'll tell it again. When we moved out there by my brother and mom's house, and got the mobile home in, I planted a garden behind the house, probably 20 yards away from the back of the house, and I had this little ornamental windmill. You know, the ones that's about 6.5 feet tall and metal. I put it out there by the garden. Well, I was coming home from work one day, and I looked, and I noticed the windmill part was gone off of the stand. It wasn't there. So I go inside, and I line up all my kids and said, who took the top off of my windmill? And we didn't, Daddy. We didn't. Okay, so I go out and I look for it. It's 50 yards in the pasture next door, just laying out there. So I walk over there and get it. And I look, I push it back down on top. Think nothing more of it. Well, about 3 days later, I guess, I come back from work. I look out there. It's gone. The top's off again. So I go back out there, look again. This time it's twisted. Little circle with the blades. It's twisted. I'm sitting there. I know what's doing this. And so I said, I'll fix them. So I took it to my shop, straightened it up, fixed the circle, and I pulled it up and I moved it about 60 yards toward the back of the property and planted it in the ground. Set it up back there. So I come home and looked behind the house way down there, and the top was gone. So I walked down there, and the circle part is broken. It's totally torn apart. And each blade, you know, they're triangular shaped blades. Each blade was torn off and stuck in the ground, point first. Every blade was stuck in the ground. And I'm sitting there going, okay, you don't like it? Okay, I won't put it up. That's it. Well, when it turned, it would go squeak, 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 squeak. And that's the only reason I think that they would have tore it up, have messed with it. But pretty cool, though. Pretty fun tearing the blades off the dadgum miniature windmill. They have a sense of humor, I think. I really do, in a weird, warped kind of way. But they have a sense of humor. But,
well, I guess if you live in the woods and you're solitary, you probably are a little warped.
Oh yeah, you'd have to be. But they're survivors.
Yeah.
I mean, if we had a tenth of the skill that they have, but of course they're the king of the forest. No doubt.
They've unlocked parts of their brain that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Don't get me started, Jeff. They're not using fluoride to brush their teeth. They're not doing all that stuff that kills their senses. Yep. So
you're right. You're 100% right. But anyway, I'll make that my last story. I have others I could tell, but I'm down.
We'll have you back on sometime.
I'm sure we'll get you rescheduled sometime.
Yeah,
I'd
love to come back on. I enjoyed it. I really did.
Awesome. Good deal.
Yep.
Sounds like a plan to me.
All right, guys. Well, it's been a blast.
Thank you very much, man.
Yes.
Very good
Thank
stuff.
You very much.
Very good stuff. Yes.
All right. Well, you guys have a great night.
You too. Get some rest.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, definitely got to do that.
Yeah.
Thanks again, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Luke. Appreciate it.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good stuff to take to the bank. That's good stuff. I'm tired. My goodness. I didn't have to do a whole lot of talking, but my goodness, man, what a lot of information. Good information. Common sense. No frills, to the point. Good stuff.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to those 5 episodes because those symbols really interest me.
They're not real long either. So if that's the ones he's talking about, that's on his YouTube channel.
Okay.
What's the YouTube channel again? Because I already forgot what it was.
Texas Bigfoot LG.
Okay.
LG. Now, he mentioned something else. I didn't see that there for a link, but okay, one off. Okay. I imagine he'll probably still send it. So
very informative.
Yeah.
And I believe Bigfoot New York Todd sent out some stuff that he could get that Luke could get a hold of to do some conferences or something.
Yeah, Todd is actually going to be speaking in Mary's place this year, so I should get to watch that before I have to leave Saturday at the festival.
Yeah, he said 11 o'clock.
Okay,
Saturday morning.
Thank you, Virax.
I'll be in West Virginia. I wish I could go up there, but I can't.
Yeah,
Virax said that they're not in his on his YouTube channel, that he would send us a link. So Jeffrey, be prepared.
All right.
Yeah. That'd be cool to get some information on those symbols too. Pyro's already sounds like he's already identified some. He was posting in here, so
yeah.
Evidently he couldn't see the chat. That's why I wasn't sharing a whole lot of stuff over to him. So okay. Well, we're 2:45 in, man. Good show. Thank you, Blackie, for stepping in.
Hey, thank you.
We'll just
no problem. Love it.
Probably have you here every week now. So
I want to learn.
David's ready. Yeah, will do. Absolutely. Again,
next week we have DA and Robbie for the 50th. So
50th show next Tuesday.
And I heard you hit 500 tonight. So
yes, we did. Yeah, we finally hit 500. We don't push it. We sure do appreciate everybody subscribing, liking, hitting the thumbs up, all that good stuff. I don't ask for it, but it's always a noise in here. There's always a noise in here. Jeff's like, why are you always looking away?
you live in a trailer, Jerry. There might be something outside.
One big office. Yeah. No, this is inside. It's the wife fumbling around, Cindy. But yeah, it's good stuff. And again,
Tammy said she missed what the symbols were on.
Tammy. Oh, Tammy, here. I'll put the link here again. It's on his YouTube page.
Yeah, all right, I'm buying the beer next week.
There you go. Yep, there you go. Texas Bigfoot LG. Search that on YouTube.
I
Okay,
sent Tammy
now.
I sent her Tammy's email over to him, so
Yeah, that's fine. They can communicate. But good night, Catherine. Thanks for stopping in. Appreciate everybody in chat. Love y'all and thumbs up, all that good stuff. Again, 500 subs finally. Woohoo. How about that? Blackie was in here. Blackie. Blaylock was in here earlier. But
I'm here. He probably lost internet again.
I kept seeing a poltergeist behind Blackie, and then I realized it was Erica.
It's probably Erica walking by.
Floating back and forth through the window. I was just waiting for her to do this in the window.
As long as the eyes ain't glowing, that's okay.
You don't know about her. She could be.
That's a whole nother realm. Thank you, bud. Y'all have fun down in Hollins again. Blackie and Erica.
Yep. I got
We'll
you.
have stickers, old line cryptid stickers and Beards and Booger stickers. I forget how many I stuffed in the envelope.
Oh, there's Erica. And
there she is in chat.
Yeah. So
she's
so
been.
party.
It's been a big day for her. She got home from work and got to play in the garden, so that's a big deal for her.
Cool deal.
So,
parting words, Jeff.
Well, if anybody's going to be in Forest County this weekend, I will be at the Forest County Bigfoot Festival.
When are you leaving?
I will be leaving Thursday.
Thursday. Okay. I'll get hooked up with you. And get
I wish I could stay the whole weekend for that thing, but we're going to have to come back Saturday, unfortunately, because my girlfriend has a family function.
You got to get your priorities straight, son. You got stickers. You got work to do, and you're leaving Saturday.
I'm hoping to get down Chad's way. Hopefully, maybe in August for that McMinnville.
You just keep rubbing that in, don't you? You just keep on rubbing that in.
It depends on what's going on around here, so we'll see.
What's the date on that? What's the date on that? August what?
Oh crap!
Yeah, it's
yes, bud. I will stay away from Freemason auctions. I will not be going to any Freemasons auctions.
Yeah.
The wallet got stretched a little that weekend.
It's August, Jerry. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, every Saturday in August is booked up for me.
I don't know if there's going to be zip lining at the conference.
I've got 2 Fridays and 4 Saturdays booked filming and pulling. So I'll tell you where I'm at. I'll be everywhere but Tennessee, unfortunately. But anyway. Well, gee, thanks, Erica. You could have been a part of it too, but you decided not to. I'll be a suburb slop, huh? That's it, Chad. You're not doing any more shows with them guys.
Nope. No.
Yeah, right there, August 16th.
August 16th. Okay, yeah. Barryville, Virginia. That's where I'll be.
I really appreciate everyone joining us tonight. Thanks to Chad for coming in and
the Chatster
being the new third man.
Yep. Don't have to thank me. I'd do it no matter what. I mean, if you guys need something, I'll be here.
Yep.
I love this stuff. I love you guys. Now that I got to meet
you, man.
Well, you're the stay-at-home husband now, so you got plenty of time.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking for a job, so we'll see what happens.
Something to get you out of the house.
I'm just pretty much. I'm just really picky. So I've been through all the crap bosses, and my last job was really, really tried.
You should go work at a pew store.
Actually, I have a friend that runs a pew pew store here in town, but he already hired somebody, and he won't pay any more people to hire. He won't hire anybody else.
Yeah.
Oh, Michael X will be there. All right, brother.
Jeff ain't going to make it down.
At McMinnville.
Jeff's going
Okay.
north. Oh, McMinnville. Okay. Yep. Yeah, it would be cool.
Wild Man Conference.
I'm just gonna. Uh oh. When we do that for you, Jeff.
Oh,
There we go. I'm just going to show up at a fire pit night down at Mark and Brecca's. I'm just going to show up.
I thought Mark and Becca mentioned that they might do their show this week at Hollins. I don't know.
They've done it before.
Yeah, they've done it from Hollins before.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to Mark today. He's got a couple days of work this week, and then he's planning on going down probably Friday. And but it sounds like they're getting some weather this weekend at Hollins, so
the rain
might be packing up early Saturday if the
rain chances keep lessening. Though we've been keeping an eye on that. So
yeah, there's supposed to be that up here too where I'm going, so we don't know how it's going to shake out. But I'll take my rain gear.
Okay, this is turning into a Southern goodbye. So we're out.
I need to eat dinner.
We got to turn it to the Irish goodbye now.
She brought me dinner out, and I didn't want to I ate 2 bites. I'm like, I look stupid on screen. I'm not eating.
Just turn your camera off for a few minutes. That's all.
I know you did. I saw you do it, and I should have, but
yeah, that's what I was doing. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yep. All right, everybody. Thank you. See you next Tuesday night for show number 50 with D.A. Roberts and Robbie. And
Robbie Raines.
Yeah, I look forward to that one.
3 of us, and maybe we can twist David Blaylock's arm and get him on too.
Yeah, hopefully we can get him in.
I know he's frustrated with his internet, so I'm not going to push him. I get it. So, all right. Great show tonight, man. Great guest. Thank you, Lauren, for that one. That was awesome. I'm looking for my way out here. Hold on. Gotta find my closing video.
Art, my shampoo is already packed, brother.
That's funny.
That's funny. I'm going to pack my wax for this weekend.
Wax, yeah. All right. See y'all next week. Good night and thank you. 500, man. We're on our way, Jeff. Chad. Blaylock.
Yeah, I'm going to have a Blaylock thing on my shoulder or something.
I gotta get an OLC tattoo.
No LC tattoo. You put it across your forehead?
No. No. Nothing here.
All right. Thank you.